Good evening, everybody. Welcome to round number 6 of this year's ASR Development Series. It's a little bit of a different taste here for you tonight. Outwell Broadcasting is the home for the first ever trip to the Bend Motorsport Park in South Australia. The circuit we've tried to get off the ground a couple of times before, but has been unsuccessful. But thanks to the hardworking ASR admin team and, of course, to Dream Simulations and their track builder, ASR finally gets a chance to grace the newest of the permanent circuits in the country. Unfortunately, Lewis Wedding's a little bit under the weather this round, so hence why myself, Steve DeVries, is behind the mic for you this evening with the 6th round of the series and making his commentary debut this round. No, NZ Snipes is also a little bit unwell, and we've gone and not so quite scraped the bottom of the barrel yet, but we've got to get a few people up to speed every now and again, and we're bringing on board Nathan Higginson. So the series second place champion from last year steps into the box, and Higo, welcome to Outwell Broadcasting.
Good evening, Stephen. Thanks for having me. I'm surprised that I'm not quite scraping the bottom of the barrel, and I'm glad that you're still not letting the fact that I've bottled the championship last year die.
Yeah. No, we're definitely not letting you that sort of thing go.
I wouldn't be let down that easily.
No, definitely not. You're not going that sort of easily. But no, it's great to have you on board. Great to have someone that's sort of in behind the steering wheel of these cars be in the commentary box. It's actually quite handy for us just to get a little bit of an understanding as to what these drivers are going through throughout the course of a race night. They're, of course, all right now holed up in the driver's briefing, but we've got a good field. It looks like there's about 24 to 26 drivers that are taking place in tonight's action. So not the full width and breadth of the field as we've come to understand over the course of the last couple of rounds. But there's a few new faces in there, Higo, and they are really starting to shake the tree a little bit. They're starting to really want to make their mark in ASR after only sort of popping up on the radar in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, they are. There's one notable appearance from that sort of group of people is Aidan Williams. He's come into the fold as a privateer running a new car, and he's sort of taken everyone a little bit by surprise with the fact that he's starting to pull sort of main game times within the first little bit of practice that he's done. Same can be said for Seth Brown, considering he's running a guest car tonight. He's running a guest car as a Super 2 car. I don't think we were going to let him run as a Super 3 vehicle, considering how quick he was. And I think, depending on what the go is, we might end up seeing a couple of these fellas do a couple of rounds in Super 2 and then get thrown up to the big pond and into the main series, considering that, you know, they might be they're not overstepping their welcome in Super 2, but they're certainly threatening the top end of the grid.
Yeah, they definitely are. Aidan Williams, for him, this is his second round. He, of course, had a run around the Queensland Raceway circuit back at round 4, I'm pretty sure it was, and was front running.
I believe that was in a guest car, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was in a guest car,
Yes.
And he was front running pace for most of that round and finished up the pointy end of the field. And he was next in the queue when a number of drivers were not able to continue on in the development series, had their entry revoked or withdrawn. And he was the next one to pop up and appreciated getting his own car in the game. So that's the VF Commodore with the warped race engines backing all over it. So it's a purple and green and white machine. So you'll get to see that throughout the course of the evening. And
yet another beautiful skin thanks to Daniel Cox Designs.
Absolutely. And Seth Brown, he's the other one you just mentioned. He's running the Matt Stone VF Commodore in Super 2 this round as well. So, and a few other substitutes that are in there as well. There's been plenty of them over the course of the last couple of rounds. So you got Luke Speck, I think, is in there as well. He's jumped aboard the
number 49 of Jake Burke.
Of Jake Burke, that is correct. And another one that I think is in there as well, filling in for Mark Davey this round, is looking here to see on the list there, he's just dropped off my radar for a few seconds. It'll be Chase Tippett, who's another one of the debutants, had debuted all the way back at Queensland Raceway about 2 months ago. So we're just waiting for a few things to get completed and get underway here. So before we get stuck into qualifying, let's have a look at our track, because this is the first time we have made a trip to the Bend Motorsport Park. So you can see there, we're using the short layout. We're not using the proper international layout, which has been accustomed to supercars over many, many years that they've been coming here. Well, a very short few years they've been coming here, rather. This is indeed the shorter layout, which was one of the layouts that they ran back-to-back in the COVID hit years of supercars at the Bend, when they were akin to, the 4 or 3 rounds that they ran at Sydney Motorsport Park. There was the 2 rounds that they ran back-to-back with the international circuit and the West circuit for supercars at the Bend. So we're using the shorter layout because, from what we appear to understand, it looks like it's going to be a little bit better for the type of racing that we've got tonight, which is 3 sprint races of 12 laps each. Of course, a 25-minute time limit. And the big beauty of this, Higo, it's a new circuit, and that means there's no records, so there's a slice of history on offer tonight.
There is, yeah, no records for anyone, no previous records, considering it's a brand new mod, as you said, put together by the wonderful people in the admin team, including myself. A little bit of a shameless self-plug, but yeah, obviously, as you said before, can't forget to thank Dream Simulation and his trackman over International for putting this together for us to then convert over to AMS for us to use in the league.
Absolutely, and I just noticed a little detail here too, that for a long time Lewis Wedding, of course, has brought the development series, but this is Outlaw Broadcasting, so we did forget to remove the loose sim logos in the top corner there, but we thought we'd keep the look and feel the same, because it has been the pink of the loose sim network for the last few seasons with the development series, and of course the Outworld orange for the Supercars series, which we will get to see them take to this circuit for a similar format, 3-race format, coming up next Friday night. So you might see a few drivers from tonight's running get the gong and get the call up, either in a substitute guys or a wild card appearance for next week's Supercars round. So just having a look there at the circuit on the map. So the bit of circuit that we're interested in is going to be up at turn 6, because on the usual Supercars layout, that goes left about 150 metres or so before where the corner is there, and then you'll go and do that big, long, sweeping loop of sequence of corners, and then that brings you back onto that short shoot around at turn 7. So this is something that you'll be sort of trying to scratch your head and remember the last time that you actually did see or watch the supercars in real life when they did use this layout, because it doesn't come up all that often. But it is a layout that is used in real life in a lot of the local state racing as well. So they do mix it up and use the international layout. They use the West layout for some of the local state racing, Hyundai XLs, Formula Vs, those sorts of categories. So it does get a little bit of use. The track itself doesn't get a huge amount of use throughout the year. It's only just the local state racing, some track days and supercars, maybe a little bit of GT racing. So for a permanent circuit, it doesn't get as much usage as you'd probably expect it to, far from the likes of Phillip Island or Winton that see track activity for a good 200 odd days a year.
Yeah, as you said, I think 90% of what goes on at the Bend is usually just some private test days and public track days. Sort of bring what you want, bring it down. Usually they have to be either road registered or registered to be able to run at a track day, and it's usually a couple of days of that during the weekends throughout the year, and then you've got obviously all the big events. I believe at least one point there was the Asia Le Mans series running the full big layout. It's about 7 kilometers. It's the second longest layout, or second longest race circuit in the world. Obviously second to the Nordschleife over in Germany. But as you said, yeah, the West layout, sort of a circuit that gets used mainly for track days. Obviously, during the COVID hit years, we had supercars doing one or two back-to-back weekends. But now that COVID's, touch wood, sort of behind us now, it's mainly the proper circuit, the international circuit, that's being used most of the time.
Yeah, you're right. That is the circuit that sort of gets the most amount of use. You'll see there is some traffic cones when we get down on the approach to turn 6. You'll be able to see where that circuit actually veers off to the left. And the braking zone's a little bit more elongated now because the corner goes a bit deeper in with the west layout, so there's actually a slight variation to where the braking markers are for that particular corner. The brake markers are usually referenced on the usual circuit for turn 6 going left, but then they sort of pick the brake marker boards up and then they move them about 100 metres further down the line and have them plonked and ready to go for turn number 6 going right, which is a lot further into the layout. So if you haven't seen how one of these works before, it is a very, very short qualifying session coming up, just 10 minutes on the clock. All drivers in both classes out on the grid together, out on the track rather, together. And whoever gets the fastest time, of course, will start the race from the front row of the grid in pole position for race 1 this evening. And it's progressive grid format after that. So wherever you finish race 1 is where you start race 2. Wherever you start finish race 2 is where you will start race number 3. There have been a couple of occasions in the development series where it has been a reverse grid or partial reverse grid in some cases, but for most of the racing this year it is being kept in a progressive style format. So emphasis on qualifying is quite important. Drivers getting in there and getting a lap on the board and solidifying their spots so they can either try and solidify their positions for the following races later on in the evening. And it looks like we've actually got 27. There might have been a late driver, I think, just potentially jumping in quite late. And it looks like we may have lost one driver from the session already. So actually 26 drivers at the moment to start. Just waiting on confirmation that pit lane is indeed open. And we will hopefully have some cars on track very, very shortly.
That's right. I think we've unfortunately had Damien Kelly drop out just at the last minute, just between the switch over from practice to qualifying, and the 27 cars. I think there was 27 cars in practice just before. Obviously, there've been people dropping in and dropping out just to reset their tyre banks and get themselves ready to go for qualifying.
Now, one of the things that we have noticed just in the last sort of couple of days is that because the circuit is actually quite a large circuit, physically there's a lot of objects on the circuit. It does take a little bit of time to load and a little bit of time for everybody's games to get synchronized up, just because it's the sheer size. It's, from some of the ASR tracks we've had and developed in the past, it's akin basically to Bathurst in terms of its actual size. So it looks like we are sort of set and ready to go here. Some cars rolling out on the track for qualifying, so let's pick up qualifying action. Flurry of activity in the pit lane. Look at them all streaming out of pit lane. They're wasting absolutely no time. A lap time might only take about a minute and 17 seconds or so, but you don't want to be leaving too much time to get out on the circuit. It is very, very busy right at the start of the session.
Yeah, you're definitely right. There's a lot of people streaming out of the pits. A lot of people wanting to get track position early so that they're not interrupted by slower drivers coming round to start their lap.
Yeah, still streaming out of the pits. Here we go, Luke Yeager in the 4for22 machine. He's leaving the lane. The only car that I haven't seen leave the lane yet is Glenn Miles. So he's the 25th car at the moment, but I think he'll probably be pretty comfortable to start from the back. And it looks like two of the Kiwi contingent in Damien Kelly, and it looks like Jacob Palfrey. Doesn't look like they're going to be taking part in this session. They have not left the lane. In fact, they've actually left the service. So there's still a little bit of time left on the clock, but they're not going to be able to get back in for qualifying in the next few minutes or so. They're going to have to start at the rear.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for them, but Jacob Palfrey, he's quite a handy steerer from the amount of work that I've done. I've been a bit of a crew chief for some of the guys over at Sideways Esports, and he's quite a handy steerer. A lot of the guys over there are.
Right, well, let's have a look. There's a lot of queuing I just noticed going through the last couple of corners. There goes Rhodey exiting stage right immediately at the final corner, so that's going to really ruin his qualifying session and also ruin whatever qualifying plan that he had. He's had to go back to the pits and start again. And you got Murrell chasing Brap already into turn number 1, looking for that slipstream. So through turns 1 and 2, and then the right-hander at 3. And then now you've got the climb. This is where you start to rise up There's a very, very small amount of elevation change here at the circuit. It's relatively flat. There's just only a couple of metres difference in the height. Very, very quick turn 5. You then want to move the car all the way back over to the left for turn 6. And this is where you see that little bit of an offshoot that goes to the left. And then we go a bit further into the corner and through this little connecting road, through turn 6 and 7, back onto the main circuit. You want to swing the car left through this double left-hander, just kissing the apexes of the corners, just kissing the rumble strips, and then through turn 9, short shift to third gear, out to the far side of the circuit. Then now just 2 corners to go. Second last corner is akin to sort of turn 10 at Winton. It's not a full 90-degree corner, it's actually more than 90 degrees, so you've got to be rather patient, not like Scott Murrell behind Brap, who was a little bit aggressive into the corner, then kicked up the grass behind him. And then you want to use as much of that exit rumble strip as you can at turn 11, because there's time to be gained down the front straight if you can get a good run off the final corner. Brap's time at the moment is good enough for P3, but it's one of the rookies that's in there at the moment. Seth Brown, the fastest time at the moment, with a 1:16.677, which is the fastest lap that we have seen so far this week, and he's pressing on with it at the moment down to the second last corner.
Yeah, it's a brilliant time from him so far. It was, with some of the pace that he's had recently in the past couple of days leading up to the event, it's sort of, in my opinion, it's not really a surprise, really. But we've just seen Aiden Williams. He's just gone 2/10 faster than pole in the first sector.
And Brap's responding as well. So just keep an eye on Brap. He's actually gone purple in the first sector, and he's actually responding to the challenge that's being thrown down as well.
Up in the second sector.
So Brap now on his way to the final corner. So we're watching Brap, but we've also got an option here on Aiden Williams. We're keeping a bit of a watching brief on him. He's down 23rd place at the moment. Actually hasn't set a time yet. He's not that far behind Brap. And we keep an eye out for what the time's going to be. Goes very, very wide at the final corner. Does he have an invoice to pay there? 16.729. Good enough for second place. Williams has got traffic. He's got Luke. Is that Luke Yeager, I think, there? It is at the final corner, and this might ruin the lap. But on a fast lap himself was Yeager, so he wasn't obliged to get out of the way. So that does cost Williams a little bit of time. It moves him up to 4th. He hadn't set a time yet, but he does get himself with a representative time up the pointy end of the field.
One thing I'm not really seeing is something that some of the drivers were complaining about earlier in the week is on the entry to turn 6. A lot of them were getting some brake locking. I think most of them, with the further practice that they've done, I think they might have been able to tune that out with the brake bias, because the Super 2 cars, you've only got a very limited setup window.
Yeah, there's very limited options that are available on both the Super 2 and the Super 3 cars. A lot of drivers are finding that it's the brake bias and just playing around with some of the bars on the fly. They can't set them in the garage, but they can set them while they're out there on the track. And just playing with a few of the settings is just helping to make things a little bit better for them through some of these corners. But then I think more so the brake balance and the brake modulation going into turn 6. I think a few people have actually found the happy medium at that part of the circuit. Now they've worked out that they don't need to brake too late. They can actually brake slightly earlier, brake harder, and then just ease off the brake a little bit better, and then they'll still make the corner without the signs of the brake locking that we've seen over the course of the week. Here's your current Super 3 top driver at the moment, Darren Lockman, a 1:17.619. The alarm bells are ringing in the Discord for him at the moment. I think, Hugo, there's been plenty of drivers saying to him it's time for you to go up to Super 2, but I don't think he's too keen on it.
Yeah, there's been a lot of promotion talk recently in the Dev Series field. Darren's definitely one that's people have been protesting for him to go up to Super 2. There's been a lot of people protesting for people like Hayden Cuppett to be thrown up into the main series. Same with Brap.
Yeah, well, Brap's been doing a fair bit of wildcard driving in the main game already. He's probably done at least 3 rounds from the last time I checked. Oh, here we go. There's some interesting activity happening here. I think Scott Murrell's getting rather racy with Aiden Williams. Do you think this is maybe throwing a little bit of gamesmanship out there early, saying that Murrell doesn't want to be intimidated by the up-and-coming youngster?
Yeah, I reckon it could be a little bit of the old soul and just not wanting to be intimidated.
Well, it might have worked.
Well,
it might have worked
on him.
Yep, so Aiden Williams has gone deep. He was on a timed lap there. He's gone deep at the second to last corner. The gravel traps here are quite sticky, so if you go into the trap, you are going to have to surf it out the other side relatively slowly, and Williams did a good job of that, and now he wants a new set of boots.
Yeah, the sand traps around here, it's you get stuck. It's going to be one of those things you basically got to go back to first gear, low and slow. You got to be really careful that you don't overheat your engine.
That's right.
Getting out of those, because if you get the revs too high, you're not really moving. You're going to be boiling your coolant, and next thing you know, you're going to be stuck in the sand trap with a dead engine.
That's right. Now, anybody that's in the pits right now that wants to get another lap in has to get a wriggle on. They have to be leaving pit lane in the next 20 seconds, otherwise they're not going to get another lap. So I can see Williams in the background. He's taking tyres, and Knight.
He's taken tyres, but he's had to fold out behind Knight.
Yep, so there's a bit of a problem there that I don't think they're going to get another lap. So they're going to struggle from where they are at the moment.
It's possible he may be able to, just because of where the start finish line is. If he can get a good lap round, it is very possible that he might get another lap in. But at this point, I don't think he will. He's already taken Ethan at the first corner to try and get past.
A little bit of wandering there. Callaghan wasn't on a fast lap, but neither was Brown at that point. But he was wandering a little bit there. Didn't know what to do, and he had some cars coming up that were getting ready to either complete a lap or start a flying one. So he's found a bit of trouble. Brap's found some trouble on his last flying lap as well. He's in the kitty litter at the second to last corner. So he'll have enough time to get out there and get another lap in. But that's not good news. He's going to have to do that lap on some pretty average tyres.
Pretty sore tyres, yeah. It's going to be fairly cooked tyres. He might even end up going back. No, he's going to go.
So there's been a late charge up the order. It looks like Steve Warwick's moved himself up the order into 8th place. Green moves himself up into 5th as well. So there's some improvements going on late in the session here. So we're looking for Williams. You can see Daryl Callaghan has just dropped down the order 2 spots. So he was 10th. He's been jumped by Kemp. He's been jumped by Kai Jones in the last 20 seconds. So Williams has got 4 seconds on the clock. 3, 2, 1. He's not going to get there.
Hasn't got it.
So he cannot improve. That's the end of his session. No good there. Just a hair too late. So the best for Williams can do is 3rd. The best that Brap can do is 2nd. So Brown at this stage looks like he's sewn up the pole position. He's not on a fast lap here at the moment. He is just coming to the second to last corner. He's down on his time, but unless somebody can pull a rabbit out of a hat right now, he is not going to improve, or he's not going to be jumped rather. He will have pole.
And just doing a quick scan. No, he's pulled in.
Pulled into the lane. So end of his session.
That's it. End of Ryan Smith's session as well. He probably wasn't going to end up getting anything. Darren Loughnane in 6th is quite a special performance for him.
Yeah, that's a good performance. And Luke Speck not too far behind. He actually jumped up a couple of spots late in that session as well. He was another mover that helped push a few drivers down the order. So top 2 in Super 3. Darren Loughnane starting in 6th place. He'll be on row 3 of the grid next to Anthony Green. And Luke Speck moving up to 7th. He'll be on the 4th row of the grid alongside Scott Murrell.
Yeah, no real improvement from Darren. He was about a second, 1.2 down on his personal best. He's call it 8 tenths off pole position, and Speck is another 10th behind him.
He certainly is. Speck to the lane now as well, so I think that sort of covers us for qualifying. As you can see, there's your Super 3 pole sitter. Darren Loughnane is going to be touring into the lane. So top 10 after all of that. So the leader in Super 2 is going to be Seth Brown on his debut, taking pole position. So he was one of 2 men in the 16s. Brap managed to rattle off a 16.7, so only half a tenth behind, and not a lot in that at all between those 2 on the front row of the grid. And then you're going to end up in the next couple of rows. You're going to have Aidan Williams and Ryan Smith, Anthony Green and Darren Loughnane, Luke Speck and Scott Murrell, and Steve Warwick and Kai Jones are going to be the last 2 inside the top 10, 9th and 10th respectively, and just being bumped out at the last minute there, Kemp and Callaghan down to row 6. Ethan Knight, Angus Brown, Luke Yeager and Jesse Bennett Cracker and Nathan Coe, Chase Tippett and Laszlo Teglis, Rhodey, Matt Cecil, Melody Smith and Glenn Miles did not set a time, so he will be 24th. And then there's 3 drivers off the back of the grid. We're going to have Hayden Cupid, Jacob Palfrey and Damo Kelly are the last 3 cars in the field, and they're going to be starting off the back of the grid. So a couple of hard charges in there that they're going to be keeping an eye on to see how far they can advance themselves up the field. And coming into tonight, Higo, I was looking at the lap times and thinking this is probably going to be one of the sessions where I think we have the biggest spread potentially of lap times. But sort of first to 22nd, it's only 3.1 seconds. So that's not too bad. And then, of course, there's a couple of drivers that are just going to be outside that haven't done a huge amount of practice and are going to be sort of in the 20s and 22. So it's not as bad as what I thought it was going to be for a brand new track, but there's some close times throughout the field, covering a number of drivers there.
Yeah, the spread's not too bad. I mean, the spread from first to 10th is only 1.2 seconds, and Brown sort of really controlled that qualifying from the moment he set that 116 early on. That one was it 117 or 116? Sorry.
The 116.
Yeah, from the moment he set the 116 early on, I think he was in a fair bit of control of that qualifying session. I didn't think Brap was close, but I didn't think anyone was really going to be able to challenge him.
No, I agree. I think once the time was on the board, I think Brap was probably the closest person. And probably Aiden Williams, if he had got a clean run through some of the traffic, he probably would have been pretty close to that time as well. It's a classic case for him of just coming across someone else that was on a fast lap at precisely the wrong time, and there wasn't actually anything really he could do about it.
Well, unfortunately, there wasn't.
No, well, what we might do while we're waiting in the warm-up session, we're going to have a quick look here at the standings coming into tonight's 6th round. So 5 rounds completed, 13 rounds total for the season. And the points leader is Brap at the moment. So he's been at the top of the pile for the last couple of rounds. And he increased his margin over Darren Kemp at the last round that we had at Watkins Glen, which of course, a few of you would remember that the race one there was shortened by the unfortunate DQing of drivers for not using headlights. Just to shed a little bit of light on that situation, it was reviewed after the racing had been completed for the night and determined that full points would be awarded for that race and backdated to the big conclusion of the 8th lap, because there was 8 out of 11, so pretty close enough to how many laps would have been needed to be completed for full points to be awarded. So in lieu of the issue that was there, all the drivers were awarded full points based on those finishing positions. So that then puts our order like this. So Brap with the lead over Darren Kemp, who's had a relatively quiet season, I think I could say. Higo, he's been there or thereabouts. He's had some good results. He's had some average results. He's still in the game, and he was in the game in one of the Super 2 championships. I'm not sure if it was last year or the year before that. He had a good first half of the season, then just sort of fell away a little bit. So he's going to just sort of try to have a consistent season and not have that same thing happen to him, because he's the nearest competitor and challenger to Brap right now.
Yeah, he is. I'm just going to go and have a look just to see if I can find what he did last year.
It may have been last year. That's the only thing I can think of. I'm thinking of it too. He had a really good solid I'm pretty sure it was last year. He had a really good solid first half of the year, and then he had a slew of bad results and a couple of penalties in there as well from a few things, and just sort of dropped off the radar at the latter stages. So he sort of dropped out of the battle between yourself and Lockie Lock. And then we looked through the rest
that
of
was
the order.
that was last year. He had no wins, but he ended up in championship position of 4th.
Yes, so he did drop down the order a bit, because he was quite comfortably close to the other top 3 at the about halfway point. So he's having a much better season to start with at this point, and we're getting towards the halfway mark. So Steve Warwick and Ryan Smith, they're the next 2 of the Holdens that are in that top 4. And then the first of the Super 3 runners, surprise, surprise, is Jesse Bennett. He's actually had a really, really good season, had a really good last round at the international event at Watkins Glen. He vaulted up the order, which was completely unexpected, because Darren Loughlin had been holding sway for quite some time in the Super 3 standings. So that's a very, very big swing. And you can see there, I think they're their teammates as well. So I don't think Darren's taken too kindly to his teammate being ahead of him, albeit by around about 60 odd points.
Yeah, I guess that's what sort of what happens. There was you know, Darren didn't really have the greatest round last round out at Watkins Glen, but Jesse had a brilliant round. I think that was a track that was really suited to how he drove.
Yeah,
As he qualified
three
second. Yeah, three top sixes, qualified second. I mean, you can't get much better than that being a Super 3 driver.
No, I agree. And it's just one of those things, like I think I experienced it at Calder Park when I did a little of the wild karting. Some drivers just gel with some circuits, and some of them are a little bit of an outlier for some other drivers. So it is mixing up the grid a bit this year with some of the driving that we've had and some of the circuits that we've had. You know, circuits like the short layout of Sydney Motorsport Park. We have never run that before, and it set the cat amongst the pigeons.
Yeah, it does. When you introduce a new track like that, it really does. It really does introduce a bit of a wild card into the situation. It sort of gives people who aren't usually, up the front a little bit of a chance to go, oh, hang on a minute, I've got a bit of pace here. I might actually go and have a crack.
Absolutely. So you can see there's not been a huge amount on the movement on the race wins and the fastest laps in terms of Super 2 and the Super 3 standings. Brap still at the top on most of the standings, and John McDonald with 3 there as well from the race wins. That's actually equal in terms of Super 2 race wins with another one of the drivers that's in the field, but he's the one that did it first, so therefore he's got the gong in those particular standings. We flip over the page, let's have a look at the team standings, which is, I guess, a source of pride for a lot of people. The Holding Together PBF Academy still on top, despite the fact that John McDonald has missed a couple of the last few rounds. But that gap at the top is starting to shrink. So Darren Kemp's doing most of the legwork at the moment. Matt Cecil's missed a couple of rounds, and he's going to play a little bit of catch-up to try and help them overhaul Together PBF Academy guys. And then Jesse Bennett, Darren Lochner, they're having a stellar year at the moment. They're miles clear in the Super 3 standings ahead of Rhodey and Cracker in the PBF team HRT radio entry. Like, look at the margin there, Higa. There's already nearly 300 points, which is almost a full round just for a solo driver between the 3rd place team and the 7th place team, which are in Super 3.
Yeah, that's a massive effort. Just going back to APK, it's a what's been going on between those two teams. It's a really good effort from Brap to sort of keep it alive with John having missed the last 2 rounds. And I think you said that Matt Cecil had missed a couple of rounds, but going back through the results, he hasn't missed any rounds. I think it's just been a year for Matt where I don't think he's really gelled with the way that the cars drive this year. I think his highest result was an 8th, and that was in the second race at Barbagallo. I think it's just been one of those years where he's not really been able to have the obvious. It could be that he just hasn't had the time to go and practice as much, or it could just be the fact that he's simply not gelling with how the cars drive.
Yeah, I think he's been doing a little bit of driving in real life as well at some motorsport events in the same way that Lockie Lock, who's now up in supercars at the moment, has been as well. So a little bit of conflicting priorities there as well. I just noticed there's a couple of points entries on there that are wrong, but the order for the teams is indeed correct. So there's a few little mistakes in that entry there, so I do apologise. There's a few things there, but the order in terms of where they are listing on the standings is indeed correct. So with all that in mind, if I flip back over to the driver standings and just having a look at the 10th place man there, Brandon Dostal, who I don't believe has actually made it tonight either. So outside of the top 10, we do have John McDonald, who's only 10 points behind Dostal on the standings there. And then knocking on the door right behind him, 5 points adrift. That is Kai Jones in the what was the Vivid Esports machine, which is now a privateer entry. And Hayden Cuppett and Benjamin Rhodes. So they all look set to move up the order tonight and overtake both Dostal and McDonald. The next in the queue to jump into the top 10 would be Kai Jones if they finished in the order that they are currently in the point standings. So a little bit of moving and shaking still to go. And a few drivers in there that have got a little bit of work to do. So Luke Yeager's going to be a bit further down the order starting here. So he's had a quiet year and had a couple of good results, but some of the driving that he does need to do, a lot of his driving seems to be coming more in the race more so than his qualifying performance. So just having a look at like his last a couple of rounds, Barbagallo, there was a 17th in qualifying there, and then he went on to finish that second race in 6th place. And then in race 11, which is the first international races, he qualified 15th and then drove to 9th. So qualifying, not Yeager's strong suit, but his race results very much keeping him in contention for the top 10. Looks like we're not too far away from a race start here. We're just getting all the last of the drivers back into server, all 27 of them. So here you go. This is going to be fun.
Yes, it will, especially being on the shorter layout. You're going to see a lot of jostling for free track and essentially just space. Considering some of the corners that we have here, especially turn 6. Turn 6 for the first lap. So usually drivers should be worried about turn 1. I think drivers are going to be more worried about the entry to turn 6.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. It does fan out. It does give you a fair bit of width there, but it does narrow up quite quickly down at turn 6, whereas you can run side by side comfortably down the front straight and through the first couple of corners, but then it'll all be sorted out when we get down to turn number 6. I think we've been looking forward to this for a while. First supercars activity, albeit with a development series around the Bend Motorsport Park, albeit the short layout. And we've got everybody on the grid ready to go. So let's have a look at this grid. Newcomer Seth Brown is going to have the prime position for the race start here off of pole. And he's already taking them out very, very hard and fast on the formation lap. Brap, championship leader, right alongside him, looking to consolidate his points effort. He knows the game today is just to make sure he brings it home with a solid haul of points. Doesn't need to do anything too silly. Race wins are not the priority. They are a nice to have tonight. Aidan Williams, first round in the new car, the Warped Race Engines Commodore, and this is his second round overall. Ryan Smith, Sideways Esports Super 2 entry aboard the VF Commodore, the Rockstar car out of P4. Anthony Green, who missed the last round in the FGX Falcon, he'll be out of P5 alongside Darren Lochnan, the first of the Super 3 runners for Skill Issue Racing. You've got Luke Speck in the Sideways Esports Super 3 Commodore out of position 7. Murrell will occupy position 8. Rounding out our top 10 is Steve Warwick's in the Blackshaw Warwick Racing Team entry, and then Kai Jones aboard the privateer entry, the Phantom back VF Commodore in Super 2. The rest of our field is Darren Kemp for APK Sim Sports, Darryl Callaghan, who's had a stellar entry to the series this year and some good results in the Paint Doctor machine. Then Hayden Cupid out of 13th, actually qualified 13th, so he's not going to start off the back, so that's shuffled the order a little bit. So he did post that time before he exited the game during qualifying. He'll be alongside Ethan Knight. And then you've got Angus Brown in the Canadian Club Model O backed Ford FG Falcon. Luke Yeager 16th. Jesse Bennett, the Super 3 Championship leader, got some work to do. He's down in 17th.
Still running his
Watkins Glen livery.
His Watkins Glen livery, yeah.
He is. Cracker in 18th, and then the rest of the field. Nathan Coe in the Wobble Club Shift R Esports entry in 19th. Laszlo Taylor's 20th. Rhodey, Matt Cecil, Melody Smith, and then Damo. And then the last of the drivers that didn't set times, we've got Palfrey, Miles, and it looks like we actually have lost one other driver, but we've got 26 runners, and we are set to go. Here you go. Race number 1 of the development series is at the Bend for the very, very first time. We have lights, and we are underway. And it bobbled at the start for Brown.
Bottled it.
He's bottled the start. That's giving the whole shot to rows 1 and 2 to jump him here. Brap goes to the lead at the beginning of the race here as Brown struggles to recover. He's going to get swamped. Warwick's looking down the inside as well as so too is Anthony Green there. And Brap gets overtaken by Ryan Smith right around the outside at turn number 1. And off he sets sail
Smith
up the hill.
Smith goes wide. He's got a little bit of oversteer. He's kept it. They're going too wide through 4.
Brap gets a good run out of 3. He resumes the lead, so this is already a good scrap. Brap drops 2 wheels off the back side of the curb, heading down towards turn number 6 for the first time. Higo, this is where you said it was going to take place if there was any trouble. A bit deeper in the field. It is a little bit awkward, but it looks like the field's through relatively cleanly. A lot of congestion though, not too much panel exchange, but they're all through.
They are indeed. It was very, very congested through there. You can see how much that corner sort of closes in from the outside through to the apex.
It does. There's still a few drivers side by side here. You can see Callaghan's yet to make a move here. Here comes Cuppett right down the inside. He's going to snatch a position back there. He's had a poor start. He was 13th. He's now just recovered up to 15th. So another one of the drivers with an average getaway. Looks like Damo Kelly's had a relatively good start. It looks like he might be ahead of his teammate in the Beyond Racing Fords. They're actually nearly side by side down the front straight here, just behind Cuppett and Callaghan.
Yeah, Bennett's in a bit of a Beyond Racing sandwich. He's going to go for the dive down at turn 1.
Bennett,
he's not going to make it. Oh, he has made it stick.
I don't know if I'm not sure if that was legal or not, but there was a little bit of panel exchange there as Bennett dived down the inside at turn number 1. There's a car off the track there. That's Cracker in the PBF HRT team radio entry. He's going to get swamped heading through turn 5. Oh, Callaghan, deep under the brakes.
Makes a big dive on Bennett.
He does, and he gets that done, pulls it up beautifully as well. Can use a little bit of that exit tarmac at turn number 6. There is a little bit of leniency from the stewards there. Bennett, having none of it, has a little bit of a late look at turn 8, but has to pull out of the move.
Yeah, and at turn 6, the exit of turn 6 is a bit of a Sydney Motorsport Park situation where you can be on the outside, but if someone's on your inside the track limits, you've got to give them space. You've got to give them way. Bennett's just been tapped up the rear, coming into the second last corner though. He's made it. He's kept it all right, but it's Damo's looking to hard charge. He's fallen off the back of Bennett a bit though.
Yeah, I think he just sort of gave him a little bit of breathing room there and let him have that after that sort of late lunge that didn't quite materialise, and has just sort of slotted into position for the moment here. A little bit of an angry pack on the fringe of the top 10 here. Cuppett looking to make a move. He's looking to go the long way around at turn 1. Oh, and he sort of in position there, and there he goes. He spins out. So Hayden Cuppett makes a mistake. Late braking.
He's going to be kicking himself for that one.
He certainly will be. He's just backing the car up there just to make sure he gives everybody on track enough room. We'll have a look at that one on the Outlaw Broadcasting replay. So let's see what happened here. He had quite the late lunge. Here he is coming down into turn number 1. He was right around the outside there. You can see here the gap sort of vanished very, very quickly and sort of got hung up on the curb there as well, and that didn't help the car's course. You can rotate the car quite easily by leaving a tyre on the curbs and just applying the throttle at the wrong time. It's fallen all the way back down to 25th and second last behind Glenn Miles. In fact, Rhodey's fallen right to the back of the field, so he's not having a very enjoyable time.
Yeah, not entirely sure what happened to Rhodey. I do see some smoke at the second last corner.
Yeah, Kai Jones.
Looks to us cleared. Oh, Kai Jones is around, so is Damo.
Kai Jones is around and he's waiting and stationary. There was another car in the background there that was around
Damo's off as well. He's in the middle between the two corners. There he is just there, coming up to the last corner now.
So what happened to Kai Jones? Did he have another little mishap? He's sort of gone down into turn number 10 here, side by side with Steve Warwick. And he got sort of caught sort of ugly meat in the sandwich by Lachlan. So I think Lachlan was trying to profiteer maybe in a couple of spots there. And I don't know what happened. Oh, and there goes Kelly all on his own.
Yeah, I reckon Damo might have gotten scared just by where Kai's car was. I think it might have just spooked him as if he was coming back out onto the racing line. So he's sort of given it a bit of a wide berth and dropped himself onto the grass in the act of it.
Yeah, I think so too. So I think that probably a couple of those look like there might be racing incidents. I think. I don't think Kai will be too happy with the contact there, but a little bit of an incidental pass. And I'm just keeping an eye on what's going on with Jones as well. But then there's this little battle to the fringes of the top 10. So with all the moving and shaking that's been going on, you find Darren Kemp's moved himself up into 9th. He's being pursued here by Ethan Knight in the Burson entry in 10th place. And then you've got Angus Brown, Callaghan, Bennett and Cracker all lining up. All Super 3 cars lining up. They want a piece of this top 10 action.
They do, yeah. Darrell's one of those... He's one of those... He's been around long enough now that he's not an unknown factor, but there are just some of those circuits that he pulls pace out of somewhere, and he's able to really get up and challenge some of the Super 2 guys. We saw it at Barbagallo when he won a race.
Yeah, he's just in the right position at the right time.
Yeah, the right position at the right time. And it seems to happen a lot to him. And it's really good to see, new people to the league getting up into positions that they're able to challenge for things. He's been given a bit of a tap through turn 6 though by Bennett. Bennett closed in on the brakes on him.
Yeah, just out of back a shot, and you're absolutely right, he did too. And Bennett, I think, has just given him a little bit more wiggle room there and just sort of let him go. And there's a little bit more going
Knight's
down.
gotten past Kemp though.
Knight has now gotten past Kemp and cleared away comfortably. And then here's Cuppard still making his way through the Super 3 traffic. And then Palfrey, who started at the back, he's gained 5 or 6 spots and hasn't made much more progress after that. He's in the Xbox entry, the Monahan racing car, so that's his new livery. He's had a couple of wildcard appearances. Late lunge from Teglis, and that's too late. That's way too late. And that one might incur the wrath of the stewards, I think.
I think it might, and I don't think there's going to be a redress out of that one, unfortunately.
No, I think for Cuppard, this round's gone, or this race has not gone according to plan for him, and he's now going to be in the gun sights of the recovering Kai Jones. So plenty of drivers making mistakes, plenty of drivers getting themselves involved in a tangle, and are going to be very much on the back foot after this. Darren Loughlin, what on earth happened to him? He's just ahead of this group.
Yeah, not sure what's happened to Darren. He's dropped 14 spots.
Yeah, I'm looking just to see where it might have been. If it was anywhere, it wasn't on the last lap. It's going to be on a previous lap prior to that. So he has fallen right down the order from 6th place on the starting grid. He's now behind his teammate Bennett to the tune of 8 spots and has got a lot of work to do. And if he's going to try and salvage anything here, there we go, Jones getting hip and shouldered there by Cuppard, who is off three-wheeling it through turn 7, kicking up the curb.
Cuppad's going to be one of those hard charges. Darren's off the road, and there he goes.
There he goes, and that opened the door for the two Super 2 combatants to go pressing on.
Just while we've been following this little battle pack, Darrell Callaghan's gotten past Darren Kemp. He's done the difficult, and he's gotten past him, and he's cleared out to a margin of almost 2 seconds.
I think Brady's had some damage. He's been in the lane. He's rejoining the action now, but you're right, Callaghan.
Steve Warwick's around at turn 2.
Yep, two yellow flags out. So here comes the Callaghan, so he'll get another spot. And Warwick has been off the road. Race control issues a penalty for Matt Cecil for a drive-through, so that may be out of track infringements. So that will be an interesting discussion point. So Steve Warwick was heading into turn number 1. Looks like he was challenging Ryan Smith, and this was for 6th and 7th place. And a little bit of contact down the front straight, nothing in that one. Oh, then he lost
locked the rears.
Locked the rears on the down change.
Tried to be brave on the brakes, got the down change, and it compression lock.
And he nearly surfed it out the other side too as well. This is such a slippery surface on the grass that he just had to regather to bring himself, and that's probably the best job that he could do with all the traffic. Just in front of Darren Kemp.
Swamped.
And Darren Kemp got
he's gone wide. He's off into the sand trap at the second last corner.
Yep, Kemp's gone, and also Angus Brown too. They're both gone at the final corner. Too. So 2 drivers off. So Kemp went in the gravel trap but didn't get in there too severely. He managed to get out pretty well, but Brown was around. And Brown's also wide at the last corner too. So a lot of drivers pushing the limits here. A lot of drivers struggling with this tricky little circuit.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to struggle with this circuit. This circuit's mainly based on, especially with a lot of the lower speed corners, this circuit's a lot more based on actual driving skill and having that mechanical grip rather than the high-speed grip. A lot of guys have been asking what wing should we run, because the Super 2 guys, they have 3 wing upgrades. They have the high wing, the medium wing, and the low wing. A lot of them this week have been asking what wing should I run, because I want to have the most grip but also have the highest top speed for that long front straight. But a lot of them, a lot of the supercars drivers are saying run a lower wing, because it is all about mechanical grip. You don't need the high-speed grip. As you can see here, the toe on these cars, even with a low wing, is brilliant. Brap's just gotten up beside Aiden Williams in turn 1 here.
Yep.
He's got a little bit of a twitch under brakes, but he's had a shallow entry. He might use that getting into turn 3 to have the inside, but Aiden might stick it around the outside.
These two have been side by side for about half a lap now, exchanging positions. In all of this, Brap has lost the lead. He's also lost second place to Williams, and Seth Brown's gone back to the lead of the race. There he is. He's about 3 or 4 seconds up the road at the moment. He's just extended that to 4, and he's now about to start to wake up some of the traffic.
Yeah, you got Glenn Miles and Matt Cecil in front of him. Glenn's come to a bay. Ooh!
Yep. Race leader's just starting to come across them. Yeah, race leader's just starting to come across them now. And he's managed to negotiate Cecil and Miles and Rhodey. Didn't give him too much of a challenge because he was in the pit lane when all that went down. Brown is marching away here at the front, and his lap times are very, very good at the moment. He's the only man out there right now in the 17s. Last time he was a 17.8. Everybody behind him was an 18 or worse. So he's still got some good paces, and just punches out another 17, and he's got 3.7 seconds on the field. Now make that 4.3. The only reason he lost that time and then it regained was because of the lap traffic in the middle sector. And the two behind him, Williams and Brap, they were in the 19s, and they're still going at it. They're in the 19s, so Brap getting the short back and sides from Williams here. Championship leader really being harassed.
They really need to sort themselves out, because they're just losing time to Seth Brown.
Yeah, they're losing hand over fist here, but there's only 2.5 laps to go, so I don't think they're going to be able to make up the deficit, especially with Brown punching out the times that he is, as another tour of the lane is requested.
Another tour of the lane.
By Cecil, and there he is. He's actually off the circuit at the final, at the turn 6, so he would have taken too many liberties with the track limits there, I'd say. And
he got pinged on the outside of he got pinged on the outside of turn 5 was the last one. I was on board with Brap, and I saw Matt go wide at the exit of turn 5 coming into turn 6, and he ended up getting himself pinged on the outside of the corner.
Here we go. Murrell's in 4th place, so he's actually had a relatively good run through the field here, up 4 positions. He's running the new livery to go down south with your mouth livery aboard the Nissan, which is a great slogan, isn't it? Here you go.
That's brilliant. Absolutely
brilliant. So he's actually soldiering along quite nicely. He is losing time to Williams and to Brap, so they're doing sort of high 18s, low 19s, and Murrell's sort of in a mid 19 at the moment. You can see them, they're sort of in that just within touching distance, but he just can't quite get there at the moment. So I think he'll be quite happy to settle for 4th place at the moment and
especially
take the second row starting grid.
Jumped up 4 spots. I think you're right. He'll be happy to take that one.
And then you go back, you've got Anthony Green's had a bit of a lonely race in 5th place, started 5th, is currently 5th. Someone that's had a fair bit of speed this year, just hasn't had the pace to go with the front runners, hasn't turned a lot of practice laps this week either. So maybe there's a little bit more to come from the Sideways Esports number 10 a bit later on in the night's proceedings. And then behind him, Luke Speck's had a good run. He's the best of the Super 3 runners, so this will be a Super 3 class win for him if he can keep it on the island for another lap and a bit.
Yeah, that's a outstanding performance for Beck. It's his 2nd round now, I believe.
Yeah, it's his 3rd round, I think, actually. He's had 2 substitutes, and he's now into a 3rd round here, knocking on the door of a potential full-time ride. Good adjustment there for Glenn Miles, letting the spec through. And then you've got the recovering Ryan Smith, so he's looking and got the lights flashing as well, so he can sense that maybe he might have a last-minute lunch here. Here we go. Race 4, 2nd place here is on with Brap and Aiden Williams still exchanging places. This has been a great scrap. We've been keeping an eye on this on the other monitor for a few minutes now. and Brap is not letting Williams get away with it. He's basically throwing the kitchen sink at him here, and this has been probably 4 or 5 laps in the making now. They've lost the lead. They've not worried about now. They're just now sorting out who's going to stand on what side of the podium after race 1 alongside
very
the pole
wide
sitter.
entry into 6. He's trying to get that good run. He's trying to square it off with a good run out of 6 into 7.
No,
He's gained a
there.
little bit of time.
Little bit here, but he needs to throw it down the inside at the second to last corner, so I don't think you're going to have much of an effort.
6/10 back, I don't think you're going to be able to.
Smith a penalty as well for track cuts, so that will incur the wrath of the stewards, and that is also means he will not get 6th place overall for this race. But the pole sitter on debut makes it a dream start in ASR, and I think there's going to be tongues wagging in the paddock after this one, and he takes the win. Seth Brown takes the win ahead of Aiden Williams, so he outlasts the championship leader in a great scrap for the minor placings in positions 2 and 3. So Williams second, Brap third, and then Murrell was actually pretty close in the end. He was only a second away after all the battling going on. He had a much better lap than the 2 cars in front of him. He's unfortunately just run out of time and run out of laps and finishes 4th. Very respectable finish with Green in 5th. And then the first of the Super 3 runners is Luke Speck in 6th place. Then there's going to be a bit of an issue here because you've got Ethan Knight now up in 7th place. And then you've got Callaghan is going to be 8th with Warwick 9th and Jesse Bennett in 10th place. We're just going to have to keep an eye out here because Ryan Smith has, of course, looks like he's been docked a lap with the 30-second drive-through penalty that he had to have served on the last lap, which he didn't get to. So we're not sure where he's going to slot back into the order here, but that will have to be corrected manually by race control,
Yeah, well,
and they'll have to. He'll probably on the fringes of the top 10, I'd say.
No. So from what I can see, he ended up 23rd.
Wow.
It was a massive drop in position.
So that's
from that penalty. I was having a look at it just before he crossed the line. He was about 30 seconds. 30 seconds was about where Melody Smith was. So for some reason it's docked him a lap, but from what I could see, he was in 23rd by the time he crossed the line.
There you go. So swings and roundabouts there. So Darren Kemp was 11th. Ahead of him, or behind him rather, was Cracker, so it was a good drive from Cracker. Luke Yeager, we said that he's had some really good performances. His qualifying hasn't been his strong suit. That's not been probably the best of his races. He started 16th, finished 13th, had an off-track moment up at this corner here, about halfway through the race, so he did have to recovery drive a bit after that one.
To go from being as many places down as he was to being 3 places up from where he started, it's a reasonable recovery drive, I guess.
Recovery drive, I would agree with that sentiment, as the rest of the field sort of comes back to the lane. And importantly, no non-finishers in that one, and I think Matt Cecil got a penalty there as well, but I think he actually was genuinely a lap down after that one was over. I think he had been in to serve in the lane. And then he's actually out for a lap. So we're going to see Ryan Smith sort of promoted back up onto the lead lap, but then those that were a lap down with Glenn Miles, Rhodey and Matt Cecil. But we had all 26 drivers finish, Higo, so that's a good effort.
I think that's just a testament to how some of the driving standards are in this grid. I think, sometimes there is a little bit of complaint from some of the drivers that, he's a bit argy-bargy, but all in all, for 26 drivers or 25 drivers to finish a race around a track that's as demanding as this, that's just a testament to some of the driving standards on the grid.
Yeah, I would agree. Some testament to some of the learnings that have been going on over the course of the first few rounds of the season. There's definitely been a lot of drivers that have come into a race night and they've sort of thrown it down the inside and done a whole bunch of things and not quite sort of understood how the racing is meant to be, and they've learnt from all of those mistakes. So it's really, really pleasing to see that in a full, or relatively close to a full field of cars, everybody got home and everybody kept going. And that's the most important thing, because when you keep going, you earn points. If you don't finish the race, you don't get any points. And those points could be critical later on in the year when we get close to the pointy end and you're fighting over, even if you're fighting over 9th and 10th place, or even if you're fighting over 19th and 20th, every point counts. I keep saying this to every driver, every point counts.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, the every point will count. You can come to the end of a championship and have it only be separated by 20 points.
Yes,
Those 20 points could have been a race where you've either DNF'd or had a less than ideal race and gone a lap down. But those 20 points are, that can make or break a championship.
they certainly can make or break a championship. We're rolling over the system at the moment. We're waiting for race number 2 to get underway tonight. So what we are going to do is just have a little bit of I guess, another look at the track map while we wait for the drivers to get themselves ready, and for the server master tonight, who's actually Brendan Ross. It's usually myself, but Brendan Ross is doing all the moving and shaking tonight and getting all the drivers in and out and on time, and making everything happen. So I'm really, really grateful for what he's been able to do at short notice, and for yourself, Higo, as well, at short notice tonight, just stepping in alongside myself with NZ Snipes and Lewis Wedding, both out of action in 2 different countries, both sick. What are the odds?
Yeah, that's all right.
And we look at our track map again. So while you were talking about, you expected the action spot to be down there at turn 6, right smack in the middle of sector 2. I guess you weren't wrong. There was plenty of action going on down there. There's plenty of drivers sliding wide, and it became very much a concertina effect in the early going, but everybody seemed to negotiate it relatively well.
Yeah, I think it's one of those deceiving corners. It's just how how much it closes in, because if you have a look at the track, you have a look at it from that turn 6 TV camera, you can see how much of a close in it has on that left hand side, because you go from basically, you basically almost halving the amount of circuit that you have to deal with.
Yeah, I completely agree. The bit of the circuit that I've been keeping an eye out for most of this week, to just see how drivers are handling it, because some drivers are just getting a little bit too greedy, is what I call the flip flop. So that's the changeover between turn 9 and turn 10. So you come through 6 and 7, and you go through the double left hander at 8 and then 9, and then once you come out of turn 9, you've got to then very quickly make the move to turn 10, and then it's a bit of a patient corner, because you've sort of got to just wait for the right opportunity to apply the throttle, because if you get too greedy and you go too early, you end up understeering at turn 10, and you end up touring the grass on the driver's left hand side. If you don't apply the throttle early enough and you don't put the right amount of steering angle on, you end up being too slow, and you end up getting freight trained down to turn 11.
Yeah, a couple of drivers last race had that happen where they just had to reseat the throttle after being a little bit too greedy on the exit of 9, and you just watch them. Like, one notable example was Darren Kemp. He had to reseat the throttle coming out of 9, and I was on board watching with him, and he just had at least 3 or 4 cars just completely swamp him on the way down into turn 11. And with Kemp's driving style being so, like, as defensive as it is, he was sort of he was sort of a bit, not starstruck, but he was sort of like, it was a little bit of an overload. He didn't really know who to defend from, or whether to just bite the bullet and let them all pass, and then work about getting back in front of them.
Yeah, you're right. And look, for all that went on in that race, with drivers pushing the limits and drivers that weren't able to keep it on the island, or made a mistake, and that, we didn't see anything catastrophically bad, especially at a couple of those sort of tight corners. So turn 1, turn 6, turn 11. We didn't see anything major. Like, any of the contact that we did see, it was relatively minor. Some of it will be a racing incident. I think the worst one that we probably saw was the little bit of a late lunge that was about a day late and $1 short, from Laszlo Teglis down at turn 11, where he ended up getting into I think it was to Hayden Cupid, and ended up turning him
Yeah, he was
around.
into ended up getting into cup, and I think we'll probably see. I think the stewards might see that the penalty review piece of paper slide across their desk come
Yeah,
the end of the night, just to say, hang on, this wasn't really. this wasn't on,
Yeah.
I'd like a look taken at that, please.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll probably see that. And I mean, for all that it's worth, just as a whole, with the development series drivers this year, we did move ASR moved rather to a new review system this year, where drivers actually need to take a little bit more onus and responsibility for reviewing their footage and putting it in via a form, taking the animosity out of seeing everybody else seeing who'd reported who and for what. That was a move that happened for all series this year. And for the better part of it, I actually think it's worked rather well. We're seeing a lot more, I guess, higher quality of reporting being made, and we're actually not seeing the same volume of reports coming through because the tit for tat thing's been removed and we've put the onus on drivers to do the right thing. And the admin team have sort of taken a little bit of a step back and just sort of said, well, if it's a major incident, like a major multi-car pile-up, then it's caught on the broadcast, then they're the sorts of things that they're going to be looking out for. But they're not going to be going over the broadcast looking for all the little, niggles and things like that and looking at those, because that's not what, it's not a really good use of people's time. And for the better part, I think a lot of drivers have sort of worked out to say, okay, well, we need to be a bit cleaner and we need to be a bit more sensible. And the volume of reporting coming through is not as high as what it was. There's still, maybe 3 or 4 every round. But for the most part, they're relatively straightforward things for the admin team to look at now. So that's just a big tick that we just want to say thank you to all the drivers this year across all the
Indeed, yeah.
series that have actually upped their level of driving, and on top of that realised that the time was right to actually maybe tidy up their act and race a little bit cleaner and give a bit more better reporting feedback, and on top of that being good sports about the direction that the series and the league is trying to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, big thank you to all of the drivers who have sort of picked up that new reporting system and just gone with it. And I know that it does take a little bit extra time, going to find the replay time and all that kind of thing, but in the end it does sort of weed out a lot of the tit for tat, and it gives people a sort of a bit of a clearer idea on what actually needs to be looked at.
Yes. Just waiting on the last sort of minute or two of warm-up to complete at the moment. There actually isn't very many cars on track. The only one I can see just doing a bit of an installation lap at the moment is Anthony Green, but there's only about 40 seconds or so left in the session, so there isn't any point bringing up anything on the broadcast for you at the moment. Just, I guess, returning to some of the points that we talked about a bit earlier. Just having a bit of a look at the Super 2 and Super 3 team standings. I'll bring them up now. I've actually got the corrected points in front of me from the last round, so I'll just confirm what the order actually is on the team standings. So it's still holding together PBF Academy first, APK SimSports second, and Skill Issue Racing third. They are the correct order. It is holding together on 1755, not 1463, as you can see on your graphic there. APK SimSport at 1472, and Skill Issue Racing actually have closed the margin down. They're now at 1413. Sideways Esports Super 2 and Beyond Racing, they're in the correct positions. They're on 1173 and 1107 respectively, so they're actually pretty close in terms of points there as well. Anglo-Germanic Racing, which is pretty much just Scott Murrell now, because of Leonard Grossel going up to supercars after the opening couple of rounds of the series, in sixth place there. Then you got a trio. You got PBF HRT Team Radio HRT, or however you pronounce it or organise it, seventh. Player Racing eighth, and Sideways Esports Super 3 in ninth. So those three teams are on 975, 968 and 966, so there's actually pretty close between those three Super 3 teams, which are second, third and fourth in the standings. And then Steve Warwick, the privateer WRT Blackshaw's team, 887, which is actually the same as his point score in the driver's standings anyway. So the big points to take out of that on the order are the three Super 3 teams occupying 7th, 8th and 9th on the standings. There is only 9 points separating 3 Super 3 teams in 7th, 8th and 9th after 5 rounds with the corrected points.
I don't even think you'd really be able to call the team in ninth, Sideways Esports. I don't even really think you'd be able to call them a Super 3 team anymore, considering both Cuppet and Green are now in FGXs, which sort of denotes being in Super 2.
Yeah, that's right, because some of those drivers did actually go up from Super 3 to Super 2. And of course, that changed around the whole entire points system for those drivers as well. They carried over their points from their Super 3 exploits into Super 2 from a driver's point of view, but not the teams. The teams actually reset. And with a few drivers that had sort of moved around and moved up to supercars, there was a bit of a clamoring of team bosses looking for drivers to fill seats and try and get full teams going. But in some cases, some drivers that left other teams, the rules state so they have to become a privateer. They can't actually leave one team to join another. So that sort of shut that argument down, unfortunately, for one or two drivers.
Well, perfect example would be
Kai
Jones. Yeah, going from being Vivid Esports to it was a bit of an acrimonious departure from that team, so he's sort of had to move across to being a privateer in our eyes for the rest of the series.
Yeah, no, you're right. And look, and he's still, I guess you can call it, affiliated with the SES squad. He sits in their Discord with him. He gets all the setup advice, the tutoring, the race engineering, I guess you can call it, on a race night. So he's still very much part of that fold, and I fully expect that we might see him in an SES car at Enduro time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think another person that we'll probably see in I reckon, bit of a hot take, probably a bit early to say, but I think there are going to be quite a fair few team bosses on the phone asking for that man sitting on pole.
I think probably the front two drivers, I think they're going to be asking for them. Let's have a look here. Off we go for formation lap for race number 2 this evening. Seth Brown, he hopefully will have learned his lesson of starting from pole position after that last performance. He had to retake a couple of positions there, and can he make it from 2? Aidan Williams, second place. He'll be alongside the pole sitter on the front row for this run. Brap in third with Scott Murrell, who had a good run. He had 4 positions gained. He starts on row 2 for this second race. Anthony Green in 5th place. It's a bit of a lonely race for him. Has he got anything in store for the top 4 in this race? He's going to start alongside the winner in Super 3 for race 1 in the Luke Spec. Ethan Knight will start 7th with Darryl Callahan in 8th place. Then you've got Steve Warwick, who managed to recover to 9th after that off-track excursion, so that's a good recovery drive for him. And then Jesse Bennett, who's the Super 3 points leader at the moment, he's out of 10th. Kemp just on the fringes of the top 10, starting 11th with Cracker alongside him, who was the last driver to make it to the grid before the formation lap. Luke Yeager in 13th, so he's going to try and progress his way through the field a little bit more, hopefully without touring the grass between 11 and 12. Alongside him will be Hayden Cupid for the SES Team Cupid solo team. Angus Brown in the Modelo car in 15th alongside Kai Jones, who's gone back to the pits. I think he may have either had an issue. He definitely didn't miss the start. He's gone back to the pits, so not sure if he'll be able to get going again for this one. Possibly a game crash of some nature. We'll wait and find out.
He's back out. He's touring the pit lane at the moment, coming down. I reckon his fuel reset when the timer reset on the grid, and he's not realised.
All right, so he's going to start from pit lane. Darren Loughnane and Nathan Coe on row 9, and then Laszlo Teglis 19th and Palfrey in 20th. Then Damo Kelly, followed by Melody Smith, Glenn Miles, and then last of the field, Brody Ryan Smith, who of course had that late lap penalty that came in at the end of race number 1. Matt Cecil and Chase Tippett, who missed the first race session with a game issue, and he's now starting from the back of the grid. So how far can he get in Mark Davies' Barbarians Championship Racing Commodore? All right, let's get set again. 12 more laps on the board, and let's get ready to go racing. Looks like there's 1 or 2 drivers slightly out of position on the grid, just waiting for that to be reset. Looking from the rear of the grid, I can actually see, there you go, Darryl Callahan was a little bit short in the box, and the lights come on. 1 light, 2 light, 3, 4, 5, and green light now. Off we go. And a little bit better initial reaction this time from Brown. He didn't bog it down. He got away very, very nicely indeed. So that's a much, much better start from the pole sitter this time around. But behind him, they're all fanning out 3 wide. Brap defensive on the inside. Murrell's going to try and go the long way around. He's going to get Aiden Williams. Is he going to get Brap at the same time? He's going to try and go around a long way at 3, but he's not in position to do so, and he's going to have to duke it out with Williams side by side, heading up through 4 and 5.
Looking back through the field here, everyone seems to have sort of given themselves a little bit of space. They're not too bad so far. Coming down into the problem zone that was highlighted, it sort of closes down. Bit of front to back contact between Callahan and Warwick, but it all seems to have sorted themselves out fine.
Yep, Ryan Smith making his way through the field as well. He's made a couple of spots at the restart here. He's already up to 16th place, so he's had a ripping start as he moves through turn 8, now onto the back of Darren Loughnane at turn 9. So 9 spots already.
Bit of biff and barge between Kemp and Bennett through 9 and 10. It seems to have sorted itself out okay. We'll see what happens coming down into the second last corner.
Yep, they're just the cars that are ahead of Ryan Smith on the road here. So Kemp just a couple of cars further up the road. You've got Luke Kelly and Loughnane side by side. Oh, and it was like a rolling roadblock for Ryan Smith. He had nowhere to go. He had to pick a side, and I think he might have picked the wrong one there. He picked Loughnane when he probably should have picked Kelly.
Yeah, a little bit of a hold up coming through there though.
And he'd be lucky
to
even
Kemp's round at turn 1 after hitting Cracker.
Yep, there we go. He's off the track there, and they go straight past him. And Kemp's hard work was all done. Palfrey sort of side through just in the last few seconds there, as we have a bit of a quick look on the replay here to see what happened to Kemp. So he was quite comfortably alongside Cuppet here and Bennett.
Braking, I think
he probably did get it wrong under braking. Yeah, he was a little bit too deep. Oh, some side-to-side contact. I don't think that's potentially Kemp's fault, but have a look at this as he comes back onto the track. Palfrey sees the opportunity, he slides straight through. That's opportunistic. That is a very, very opportunistic move from Palfrey.
Just seen again here, just coming back to live pictures. I've just seen that Damo's run off the road through 9 and 10. After trying to battle with, I believe it was Kemp. Hasn't worked out for him. We've just lost Chase Tippett in the Barbarians Championship car, unfortunately.
Yes, it looks like he's still having some further issues with the game here as Callahan moves up to 9th. He's sitting in the toe of Steve Warwick here, heading up the little rise into turn number 1. As you think about making a move, that's a
massive dive.
Late lunge there, and Warwick gives him plenty of room, and Callahan gives him the respect back as well. So probably maybe about 25 or 30 metres too late, I think, there. And if he had have had a little bit more real estate, he probably would have been able to pull that move off. Great scrap between Super 2 and Super 3 combatants here. A bit further up there, you can see that Ethan Knight's managed to latch onto the back of Murrell's Nissan. So Murrell looks like he's lost a couple spots. He's lost 4th to Luke Speck and 5th to Anthony Green. Or Anthony Green's basically stayed where he was because he started 5th, though he's still 5th on the road. So a good run for Luke Speck, up 2 places. Murrell down 2.
Yeah, I was gonna direct vision back towards Speck, considering Super 3, and he's running in fourth spot at the moment, highest place of the Super 3 cars currently.
Here goes Knight.
Seth Brown with the fastest lap, 1:17 flat.
Yep. So
and Williams 1:16.8.
Well, here we go. So Trading Barb's already at the front of the field. Here they come, past the still motion camera on the pit fence. And I think there's a lunge coming here for Knight down the inside, and here there is. And there's some swapping and changing of positions a bit further back too. It looks like Cuppet may have had a run on the paint doctor machine of Darryl Callahan. And he did get a run, but he didn't quite get through. Here goes Knight, and looks like Warwick's going to use what the little wedge that Knight has opened up there. Although he couldn't quite stick it down the inside at turn 3, but vulnerable. Murrell vulnerable now through turn 5. He's got to get this braking spot on for turn 6.
Oh, he got on the grass.
And he got on the grass, and he's having a bit of a wiggle.
He's going to pull it up.
He turns it into a pass. He turns it into a pass. How did he do that?
I don't know. That must have been some beautiful brake modulation.
That must have been. That's going to feel good.
He's almost gone wide.
Yep, and Warwick wide at the back there as well. A little bit of hip and shoulder there with Ethan Knight, who's defending for his life now that he's lost the spot. I think that'll be probably one of the...
tried to slot it through on Callahan.
And he's got
it done.
Got it done, but he's on the wrong side for turn 11.
Callahan's going to try and throw it back down the inside. He's a little bit of contact side to side. I think Cuppett's going to make it stick though. Yeah, he's made it stick.
Yeah, Callahan's given up the gig there as well. Murrell wide at the final corner as well, so that's going to give another incentive perhaps to
Here comes Ethan Knight.
Down the front straight they come, and this is a much, much better pass for Ethan Knight this time around. Callahan in the background having another go on Cuppett down into turn number 1. So changing positions here, over and under, switchback, crisscross. What way do you want to go? Almost 3 wide coming out of turn 3.
Knight and Warwick getting close. Knight's going to try and go out the inside of Murrell at turn 5. Murrell's got the inside for turn 6. You don't really want to be on the inside unless you're making a pass, because things like that happen. You almost shut the door on Warwick across the apex of turn 6.
Yeah, Warwick was there looking for the inside line and looking for the space, and
Knight's been spat out.
Yeah, no, you got a little bit of a love tap from Cuppett there going through turn 7 and 8. So that will be it's a bit unfortunate for Knight, because that takes him out of that little battle group. Yeah, I was just about to say, with Steve Warwick, he was looking for that inside line on Murrell, who was covering not only Warwick, but he was trying to cover Ethan Knight as well. And there was a little bit of overlap there, so Murrell did have to leave him a little bit of room, and unfortunately just did pinch him down into the corner a little bit. Thankfully, it didn't amount to too much.
Yeah, directing vision back to the front of the field, you can see that Seth Brown's sort of checked out at this point. He's got a 4.5 second lead. He's got halfway through the race.
Yeah, massive margin at the moment, and these two are at it again, Williams and Brap. This time, at the moment, Brap has the high ground. We did say at the start of the broadcast, here goes Williams. He had a massive run through turn 5 and actually dipped 2 wheels on the grass, and Brap gives him the space, and that's probably the smart thing to do there. Remember we said at the beginning of the broadcast, Higo, that for Brap this is a risk mitigation thing. He doesn't have a beef with Williams and he doesn't have a beef with Brown. He's just got to stay at the front of the field and keep picking up the points, because as long as he stays in front of Kemp and the others that are behind him, it's not going to hurt his championship too badly. And right now he's doing precisely what he needs to do. He's not pulling any silly punches. Race leader's off the road. Race leader off the road at turn 11.
Somewhere.
He dropped it somewhere. It looks like he might have dropped it through turn 11. He's lost all that advantage, and that's the first sign of trouble we've seen Seth Brown make tonight.
Yeah, I haven't got replay, but you're getting it up at the moment. I reckon he's got on the exit curb and it's sort of swung him wide.
No, on the accelerator too early.
Lost it too early.
Yep, accelerated too early, getting a little bit too eager on the throttle pedal, and rotates the Matt Stone number 30 into turn 11. So he's lucky that didn't result in anything more serious than that.
Yeah, you're right, but I guess that's what you get for being a little bit too greedy on the loud pedal. I should know.
Yes, we know.
He's going to be pulling out all the stops now to try and get himself back that quite a sizable margin that he had before he made the mistake. He's going to be pulling out all the stops, using as much track as he can.
He certainly will be. So Ryan Smith now made himself back into the top 10. Behind Steve Warwick, crisscross over and under with Callahan, who made a bit of an opportunistic pass at 6, couldn't make it stick, and Smith took it straight back, moves back up to P8, with Knight now on the back of the rear boot lid rather, of the Paint Doctor FG Falcon through turns 7, 8 and 9. Smith's on the charge though. He's the man on the move. 17 spots gained in this race. Knight now makes the move stick on Callahan. He moves up to position number 9. Murrell's getting away from this group though, so they've got to sort themselves out pretty quickly, and if anybody's going to go out after Scott Murrell, it looks like the Rockstar machine of Ryan Smith probably has the pace to do it. He just needs to clear Warwick first.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think it's good for Murrell, obviously, that Smith is taking dives at Steve, but it's also good for Brap, because the more cars that get past Steve and the more cars that are between him, Warwick, Kemp, it's the more points that, perhaps competitors are getting less points.
Getting a bit close for comfort there. Smith looking for the over and under at turn 3. There really wasn't anything there for him, and he now gets a relatively good run on Warwick. Will Warwick take the defensive line? No, he leaves it open, and leaves room for Smith to
too early on the brakes.
He was too early though. Smith on the narrow line had to take a bit of an earlier braking approach, and I guess Warwick played that one pretty smartly there and said, you want the inside, Sunshine? You can have the inside, but you're going to have to pull it up.
Yeah, he didn't really get the greatest run on him through 5. He had to downshift back into 5th just to keep the car from bogging down, but it sort of held him up compared to Steve, who was able to just keep the car nice and settled through 5 into 6.
Yeah, he had a very, very good settled drive there, and now they go through turn 12 again for the 8th time, so 4 more laps to go. At the moment, Brap also still managing to hold sway over Aiden Williams just for the moment, and the pole sitter, Seth Brown, has managed to just extricate himself again and just pull out that margin. So he's just insulating himself again. Yeah, he's out to that 4-second margin again.
Though it's on again between Brap and Aiden. Brap ran wide at the exit of 1, coming into 2. Aiden's taking the very wide line to try and square off the corner to get a better run out of the exit of 6, which he has.
Important thing though was Brap parked it right in the spot that he needed to park it, but now he's left the door open at 8, and there goes Williams through, and he'll now have the high ground here. He'll need to leave Brap a little bit of room if he keeps his nose in there.
He's left him the absolute minimum room possible.
And look who's lurking. Look who's lurking at the moment. It is Anthony Green in the SCSV FGX Falcon, and he's in that corner. And he's in the game now because they're starting to argue he's in the game. He's managed to get past Luke Speck, so it might be a case of the combatants from race number 1 having a go at it again, but Green might feature on the podium if it keeps up like this.
Yeah, it's very, very, very aggressive defence from Aiden Williams. It's made Brap go around the outside, but Brap's made it stick. And he's going to cover for turn 3, but Aiden's going to try and go around the outside again, and he's going to try and get a better run than Brap out of turn 3 into 4.
Check out the point of view from Anthony Green at the moment. He can see the over and under and sideways and down that's going on in front of him, heading up through 3, 4 and 5. He had the best seat in the house for that one, and now Brap has to defend down the inside. He leaves a bit of room there, and I think Green, I'm not sure, Higo, here, if he's content just to sit there and see if they trip over themselves, or if he's going to throw one up the inside somewhere, but he'll have to pick his moment if he's going to do it, because there's not only some very aggressive defending from both drivers, they're also throwing the kitchen sink at it in terms of attack.
Yeah, you're right. I think Green's going to have to just sit there and bide his time and wait for the 2 in front of him to fall over, because if he goes for a move and makes a wrong move, he's got Luke Speck behind him to worry about. He's sort of dropped off now, but Luke was right up close to them round about turn 6. He was right up close to him. He's sort of dropped off now, but throughout the mid part of the lap, if Luke gets back onto the rear end of them and Green makes a mistake, he's going to end up probably passing Green.
Yeah, I think so too. Just looking back here as well, Smith still hasn't been able to clear Steve Warwick just yet. So Warwick's still 7th, and then Smith 8, but it may not be that way for much longer.
Not much longer. Or bit of a biff and barge.
Yeah, a little bit of a late turn in there, and now Knight looking for a high line here as well, and Smith looking to use the way that the track goes at the moment. Just that's a deal.
Oh, Steve's gone!
And Warwick gone. Warwick, I'm not sure if he had that go on his own or if there was something else that took place there, but Callahan goes through and he drops a bunch of spots here as well. So Smith finally clears Warwick. It took a hell of an effort to do it, and maybe a little bit of assistance there, but we'll have to see what happens after the race is over. Williams is through. He's managed to find a way through on Brap. So he's just managed to find a way in the last 2 or 3 corners, possibly heading down into turn 6. Now Green's got to think about the move because they're coming to the white flag this time around. There's a little bit of lap traffic for the race leader, but it's not posing him too much of a problem at the moment. Glenn Miles was the only one, and he's the only one that had to be cleared. As I've just seen, Knight has just gone around, heading down towards the second to last corner, and he's out of 8th place, and now going to rejoin about 20th.
Green's making a dive on Brap.
There we go. So Williams cleared through. Green making his move as it stands right now. Brap defends pretty bloody well heading into turn 1. Makes a little bit of a braking mistake at 3. A little bit of a pinch of the front brakes. Is that the incentive Green needs? Can he shift the brake balance to where he needs it for under braking here at turn number 6? He's close enough to have a go, but I think Brap might be looking to cover the line, and he does, forcing Green to go the long way round. No crisscross over and under. Holds it at the apex, and if he's going to have a move now, it's got to be down at the final, second to last corner.
So we've got some lap traffic in the way, so this might just be the miracle that Green needed.
No, Miles does the right thing, stays well wide, so good driving. And I think Brap might just hold on to third place here. Race leader through the final corner for the final time in race number 2, and he's making a habit of this. I think there's a few drivers that are sitting in the broadcast tonight looking at him saying, well, it might be a case of up to supercars you go if this keeps up. And it might be the same for this man too. He might find himself with a main game seat next week too, because he's having a stellar round aboard his new car. And Daniel Cox will be very, very pleased to see that livery doing so well. So it was Brown first, or Seth Brown first rather. There are 2 Browns in the field. Aidan Williams second. Brap holds on for third, ahead of Anthony Green and ahead of Luke Speck. So the Super 3 leader in this round is doing pretty well and driving very, very cleanly. Might find himself with another permanent seat in the not too distant future. And then Scott Murrell holding on for 6th there. So he actually managed to do enough work to clear away and just get himself clear of the battle pack that was behind that contained this man, Ryan Smith, along with Steve Warwick, who dropped out of it a bit late, Callahan, who was 8th, Bennett, who was 9th, and Darren Kemp takes the last spot inside the 10 as a result of Steve Warwick going around about 2 laps ago.
Yeah, so Hayden Cuppert in 11th, up 3 spots from where he finished last race. Got Cracker finishing where he started in 12th position. We have Jacob Palfrey. He's come up 7 spots from last race. That's a very good offensive drive to vault himself up the grid for the next race.
Yes, it certainly is. He moved up from 20th place there to be in 13th, so that's a good drive from him. And 14th to Luke Yeager, so that's roughly where he started. And then you got Nathan Coe, who's actually had a pretty quiet round, but he's had a pretty clean round. So I'd actually say that this is probably one of the better rounds we've seen from him so far aboard his new liveried car for the round. So good job from him. And then Steve Warwick recovered to 16th, ahead of Ethan Knight, who was off the track at, I think, between the second last corner, somewhere around there. So he came out of the top 10 battle. He finished 17th ahead of Lachlan, Kai Jones and Matt Cecil. And then the last couple of cars in that order, you had Angus Brown, 21st for him, and then 22nd to Damo Kelly, with Teglis, Rhodey, Melody Smith and Glenn Miles, the last classified finishers. Chase Tippett only completing 1 lap, so I'm not quite sure what happened to him there. Probably some further game trouble, I would say, is the cause of that one, because he had it in race number 1, didn't actually qualify and didn't get out there for race 1, and then race 2 he's only lasted a lap, so a little bit of a disappointing round for him so far. Hopefully he can make amends in race 3.
Yeah, and I think, as I was saying before, I think that's just another round. Matt Cecil, 20th spot. He's up 6 from where he was last race. Obviously with those penalties sort of affecting final finishing position, but I think it's another one of those rounds where Cecil is sort of in that position of, you sort of get yourself, you're at the back of the grid for the end of race 1, and you sort of can't get yourself back up the grid for whatever reason it may be. It's one of those things I think has probably also been a bit of a reason as why we haven't seen further up the grid this year. And it's quite unfortunate, though he is doing, the team's thing. He is out there each week getting points, but it's just, I don't think he's seen the results he wants to see.
No, I would concur with that as well. It's been a little bit of a difficult season so far, but you've still got half of a season to go, or actually more than half a season to go. bit to improve there. Speaking of half a season, having a look at the calendar as it sits right now for the development series and indeed for supercars, because they do follow a similar calendar, just with one round difference. The next round for the development series and supercars will be the Reed Park Street Circuit at Townsville. That's coming up on August the 4th. So it's about another 3 weeks away for that. And then it's a very, very short turnaround. It's only a 2 week turnaround to round number 8, which is at Hidden Valley on August the 18th. So they're the next 2 rounds on the calendar, both next month for the development series. And then we get ready for Enduros. So there's Enduro season in the main game, and there is the subsequent, not subsequent, but the complementary rounds that go for the development series as well. So not only are a number of these development drivers going to be doing their own, shortened races at places like Sandown, Bathurst, and Pukekohe, which are the 3 rounds this year for the Enduros. They're going to be doing their short races, 75 lap races, 75k races around Sandown. Bathurst, they've got a 125k. I guess you call it a mini enduro, but it's only a single driver event. They're going to be doing some of those rounds, but then some of them are also going to have to back it up on the Saturday and Sunday of those particular race weekends and either co-drive or share with another development series driver.
Yeah, that's right. We had a lot of drivers last year were doing that exact thing. They're having their race on the Friday night and basically using it as an extended practice for the Saturday and the Sunday, where you'd have experience racing people around those circuits. Sure, they may not be main game people, but you've got the experience of racing other cars around that circuit before the rest of everyone else does, because you're out there doing. Sure, you're not doing an enduro length race, but you're out there with people who are your pace. You have a feeling of how to drive around people at that circuit, and it sort of gives you a bit of a perspective on where you will sit on that Saturday and Sunday amongst the rest of the grid.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a few drivers in the supercars field have just seen the introduction of several drivers over the course of the last couple of rounds, and are sort of just licking their lips and just sort of going, how on earth do we get these drivers to come over and race for us in endurance season? As that's the biggest decisions they've had to make at the moment, is that the development series drivers, a few of them have been going through some driver coaching from the main game drivers. So Tim Redmond, Will Devonish, Cam Rutledge, Curtis Igmanis. I mean, hats off to those guys that have actually stepped in and run some of those sessions over the course of the last several months on, Thursday nights. A number of the drivers have really heeded that advice and are definitely becoming much, much better drivers and much faster drivers. And I think they'd probably penciled in a few drivers that they wanted to have occupy some of those extra seats, because the decision they've had to make is, do they take, both their main game drivers and put them together in one car for the best shot at winning the Enduros and therefore their championships, or do they keep them separated and find another competent driver that's just as quick to fill the seat alongside them, and then possibly have 2 cars up the front and the pointy end of the Enduros rather than just the one. So I think a few drivers had been penciled in for some rides, but I think that form book might have just gone out the window. Here you go.
Yeah, I think it might have too. I think you're going to see, there's obviously going to be the teams that want to put their 2 main game drivers together to give them the best shot at vaulting themselves up the order during the Enduros to get themselves the most amount of points possible. But I mean, if they're going to do that and then not put a second car together, it leaves a lot of those people tonight that have sort of been introduced to the dev series in the last couple of days that are sort of pushing the mid pack to top 10 area of supercars pace, leaves them nowhere to go. And honestly, I think you'd be a bit silly not to pick them up.
Yeah,
because
I think so too.
That sort of pace out of the gate is just, it's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it's off the scale. It's something that we haven't seen for quite some time. We knew that, when the likes of Luke Rosella arrived on the supercar scene a couple of years ago, he wasn't, up the pointy end of the field. Like, he was combating sort of in the back part of the top 10, but from what we saw, we're like, okay, well, he's definitely got some potential. And then, the following year, he's a supercars champion. He just sort of got a little bit better and a bit better overnight to the point where he actually was very, very good and throwing down the gauntlet at the front of the field. We've just probably seen in this little bit the likes of Aiden Williams and Seth Brown that have just jumped up and just said and just announced their presence. It's just like stamping their authority on it, like Max Verstappen when he stepped out of the Toro Rosso seat and then won the Spanish Grand Prix on his debut with Red Bull.
On his debut with Red Bull, yeah, correct.
It's almost like we're seeing another one of those again, and it's kind of hard to ignore at that point. So it'll be very, very, I would say almost it would be a shock to not see those guys have a seat at the table in the Enduro season. And the hard part too is there's the different ways that they can combine the drivers. So you can opt to have, two main game guys together, two Super 2 guys together, a Super 2 and a main series driver, a Super 2 and a Super 3 driver, and in some rare cases there's going to be permissions allowed for two Super 3 drivers to pair together as well. So I mean, if the likes of Jesse Bennett and Darren Loughnane actually do want to share a car, they are in a position where they could probably do that.
Yeah.
So the Enduro season could look very, very interesting in a couple of weeks' time when all the running orders are finalised.
Absolutely, it could.
All right, so just a short turnaround. We're just waiting on here. A couple of drivers that need to make their way back in, and the grid is just about being set and ready to go. 25 drivers in the serve at the moment. I think the one that we're waiting on potentially might be Rhodey, and the other one that I see is Chase Tippett. Doesn't look like he might be coming back, so it might be just Rhodey that we're waiting on here, and then set the grid, and away we go for race number 3. So far this round, I think it's pretty hard to ignore the advances of Seth Brown at the front of the field. I think he's probably clearly the standout driver of the round so far. But keep us some feedback in the chat for everybody that's watching at the moment. Outside of Seth Brown, who's had a stellar debut to the series, who's caught your eye at the moment? Who's a driver that you have been watching throughout the course of the night and you look at and go, you know what? They've actually had a pretty good round, or they've improved from the last round. Keen to get your thoughts. Pop them in the live chat. Let's see if we can get a few drivers that would like to come and have an interview, or someone that you'd like us to grab at the conclusion of the night's proceedings. Already a couple of ones coming in there. I think Brap's been mentioned here by Zach Brown in the chat as well. We've spoken to him on quite a number of occasions, but I would put him up there as, sort of having I guess the balls and the wherewithal to fight with the couple of the front runners in the first 2 races of the night. So I think that's probably a worthy choice, but I'm sure there's probably a few more drivers that a few people have been keeping an eye on as well that we need to drag up here at the conclusion of the racing this evening. Mike Coulston with Scott Murrell. Yeah, I'd say Scott Murrell's had a pretty quiet night, but he's actually been pretty good, I think, as well, and pretty sensible and pretty fair. And just picking up the points, that's the important bit for him. While she's going the opposite way here, you can read the chat here. Here you go. Anybody but Glenn. So that goes to show you the camaraderie between those two individuals, then, doesn't it? The two teammates who have not had much of an opportunity this year to share a car.
Yep. Typical Playboy racing banter.
Yes, absolutely. Typical Playboy racing banter. I think that's probably the best way we could call that.
Oh, well, I've just seen, hot off the press, the question that we had regarding someone like Jesse Bennett and Darren Loughnane pairing up for a Enduro drive. I've just seen in the registrations for supercars, the Enduro Cup Team Skill Issue Racing,
Jesse Bennett
and Angus Brown.
Yeah, so that's a very, very interesting development, isn't it? So that's a new thing that we need to be looking at.
Yeah, it's hot off the press 2 minutes ago. So That's yet another enduro team locked away.
Yep, so actually having a bit of a look at the Enduro teams that are in there at the moment. Actually, we're just having a small restart, I think, here for Daryl Callahan to get back in. He actually dropped out just at the last few seconds there, so we're just going to get him back in. So let's just have a look through the Enduro Cup pairings at the moment. We'll actually just read them out to you so we know actually who has been teamed up with who at the moment. So for the Enduro Cup entries, there's no confirmations at the moment. For the Pixel, Real Holden Pixel Racing Team entries, but they have got them listed. Nothing at CRE Engineering, nothing at CRE Anson Motorsport, nothing at Amped Up Racing by CRE. Ben Hall's still a privateer at the moment, so he hasn't joined up with anybody. Nothing at PBF Race Engineering. Nothing at CRE Performance Racing, nothing at Beyond Racing Young Guns. So this is starting to become a common theme here. You get where I'm going with this. There basically is only one team that has put in an entry for Enduros at the moment. Actually, sorry, two.
There's two.
There's two.
There's one for Dane Liccardo and Hayden Cupert.
Yeah, Dane Liccardo and Hayden Cupert.
That's all we know.
Yeah, they're the only ones we know so far, and then them plus the one that we've just seen registered for Skill Issue Racing for Jesse Bennett and Angus Brown. So they're the only two confirmed pairings.
Yeah, well, there were confirmed pairings for the Real Holden Pixel Racing Team earlier this year. I believe that one of the pairings was Lewis and Rossi, and then the other pairing was Hans Brunswick and Lachlan Burke. But I think with the recent performance of some of the drivers within that team over the last couple of rounds, I think there's been a bit of a rethink as to what goes on within that team and how the dynamics of which drivers go with who has sort of changed a little bit, especially considering we've seen that Luke Rosella has jumped into the second Holden Pixel car to replace Lewis, but Lewis has dropped back to be a substitute driver for that car.
Yeah, he has. That was something that sort of set the tails wagging, or the tongues wagging rather, in the paddock after the last round, wasn't it?
It was. Paddock got quite a shock when we saw that Luke Rosella had returned to the series. A lot of people were going, "Oh, hang on a minute."
Yeah, we weren't
back?
We weren't sort of expecting it, because there was a little bit of an unusual rule that we heard whispers on the wind that had come into play that was prohibiting a couple of drivers that weren't going to be running in the main game series this year. I actually had it confirmed to me by another one of the series drivers in the development series, who was actually potentially looking at going into run supercars, and then actually confirmed what we had heard the rumours of was actually true, and I actually thought was quite a rather poor taste, to be honest with you, and that's what we thought was preventing Luke Rosella from coming over to race in supercars this year. But it looks like there's been a bit of a change from where he sits, and he's actually now decided that doesn't want to be sort of privy or part of that sort of fold anymore, and has moved over back to ASR.
Now, although Lewis has just said that Lewis in the live chat under Loose Sim Network has just gone and said that he's
sacked.
sacked. So, wow, we don't know. I think that might be I think that might be a self-enforced sacking. To be quite honest.
Yeah, well, I think it's been a bit of a hallmark, I think, for Lewis, hasn't it? Poor Lewis has tried for a number of years to put teams together, and it sort of hasn't come to fruition with the team's championship. And I guess, they've been so close over so many years to wrestling away a team's championship, and they haven't been able to get there. And I think now this is probably, possibly the last roll of the dice, I think, isn't it? Let's be frank.
Unfortunately, yeah. As awesome as it is to have Lewis on the grid, I think it might be that I think he's sort of not coming to terms with, but I think he's sort of getting to the point where he thinks that, as Zach in the live chat has said, I think he's gotten to the point where he thinks has been.
I'm more of a has-been than Lewis is. Let's put it that way. I don't think there's any other two bob about it. All right, let's get ready to go for race number 3. So Seth Brown's at the head of the field again. 3 front row starts, 2 wins so far. Can he make it a perfect night? It would be the first time, I think, in ASR history that we've had a debutant make an absolute perfect night of things. I'm going to be having a very close look at the results after this one. Aidan Williams in position number 2. Great round for him aboard the new car, and against the top 2 staking their credentials for potentially a wild card drive in a week's time in a supercar at this very circuit. Brap's in third.
Hang on a minute. We've had an issue with the grid setting. We've had an issue with some grid setting. Hayden Cuppert was demoted back to 23rd for some reason.
Yeah, so I think there's a little bit of an issue there. And yeah, you're right. Hayden Cuppert, because you're just looking in the live chats in the server, straight onto it and actually saying to do that he was 23rd and why am I 23rd. So that's pretty much one of the only times that you're permitted in ASR to actually type in the chat if something is wrong. And great to see that Brendan Ross is all over it straight away. And he'll be there resetting that one in a few seconds, and we should be right to go again.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you to one Brendan Ross for the quick action on that one.
All right, last few rolls of the dice. Looks like the server is just setting the grid for all the drivers, and then we'll be back up and running again. So it looks like it's a bit of a common theme here for those drivers that we're going to be sort of talking to after this race is over, pending a disaster. It looks like the interviewees
don't jinx us.
Yeah. Well, I know it's all one of those things. Is the old
commentator's
the whole
curse. Touch wood.
Commentator's curse. Yes. So we're looking forward to seeing that. But I mean, the top 3 at the moment haven't put a foot wrong all night, apart from a very, very small mistake from Seth Brown in the second race there, where he was off the track between turns 11 and 12, but managed to get it back on and just pull out that same margin again. So it shouldn't be it's not a fait accompli yet. The job is not done until it is done. So he's still got another 12 laps and the better part of about 20 minutes of racing to go.
Absolutely.
So hats off to the drivers. They've had a really, really good round so far this week at the Bend Motorsport Park, giving it, I guess, a thorough test for the supercars drivers, which will be here in a week's time. Their races, of course, are a little bit longer than the development series drivers. They're doing 12 laps, whereas the supercar drivers, they're going to be doing 50k sprint races. I think they're up around 16 laps overall, so a little bit more. But the quality of racing is, I think, is going to be. Yeah, I think the quality of racing is going to be just as good.
Yeah, we are going to be on 3 50-kilometre races for tyres open, and I believe that's about right. I think we are about 16 laps.
It's about 15 and a half laps, so rounding up to the nearest whole lap. Right, so here we go. Grid set, ready to go again, and just waiting on the green flag to send them on the formation lap. So let's run through it again here. So Seth Brown is on the pole, looking to make it 3 from 3 and a perfect round to boot. So he's alongside Aidan Williams, who's just wandered off the circuit here. I'm wondering, has he got a little bit of an issue? So maybe something not quite right. He's just wandered off the circuit, maybe trying to get himself going there again. We'll keep an eye on that one.
He's gone back to the pits. I reckon his fuel's reset.
Probably the same sort of situation. So
Brap Jones,
Brap out of position number 3. So that's a bit of heartbreak for Aidan Williams. We'll have to see what he can do from the pit lane. Anthony
you know
Green,
who it gives the whole shot to?
Yeah, it does. Gives it to this man. He's got clear track in front of him now from position number 4 on the grid. Anthony Green, nobody in front of him. Luke Speck in 5th. And then Scott Murrell, 6th place for him. He's going to have a hard charging Ryan Smith, who's going to look for a couple of spots early on in this one. who's starting P7, having started toward the back of the grid in race number 2. Darryl Callahan now 8th, and then Jesse Bennett 9th, and Darren Kemp 10th, who was the last man inside the 10 at the end of race 2. Cup at 11th, ahead of Cracker, and then Palfrey's going to start from the lane as well. So 2 cars starting from pit lane. Luke Yeager's 14th, and actually moving up there, and then we've got Nathan Coe, Steve Warwick, Ethan Knight, Darren Lockman, and if we run through the field here really quickly, Kai Jones, Matt Cecil, Angus Brown, and then the remaining drivers, Damo Kelly, Laszlo Teglis, Rhodey, Melody Smith, Glenn Miles, and it looks like Palfrey may have dropped out of this race. So that's why everybody on the grid looks like they've moved up 1 spot.
Palfrey has not
Palfrey's not dropped out. So Palfrey
Aidan Williams has.
Aidan Williams is gone. Okay, so that explains a little bit there why everybody moved up 1 spot. So Palfrey's going to start from the lane. Williams, unfortunately, has got some wheel problems from what we see from Lewis Wedding in the chat. So that's heartbreak for him. We still might see if we can get him in for a couple of interviews a bit later on this, after this race is over, as the grid gets set. So there's a gap on the front row of the grid, and there's a gap about 7 rows deep where Palfrey should be. And now we are just waiting on cars to get into their final spots, and we'll see what happens. Here's the view from the rear of the grid. A couple of cars definitely out of position there. You can see the lights are on. 3, 4, 5, and away we go for race number 3 of the evening.
Brown's dropped the start again.
And Brown's dropped the
Brap
start.
gets a whole shot.
And here we go.
Green's out the outside.
Brap down the inside, Green down the outside. And the pole sitter does what he did in race number 1. He loses the lead on the run to turn 3. Murrell looks
Murrell's
like...
been...
Did he... Oh, I don't know if
No, he saved it. He's still there. Good save.
I don't know if Murrell snatched the rear.
Darryl Callahan's round to the background.
Callahan is out of commission. I don't know if Murrell actually compression locked it under rears or if he got a bit of a love tap there at the start, but whatever it was one hell of a save. And Brap now has the lead. Green settles into 3rd place. He's being thrown the gauntlet here by Luke Speck, so could Speck potentially make it up into a podium spot here, heading down into 6. Not quite.
Brown's pushed Brap wide.
He has, but also Smith has made his way through as well in all of this, and he's right underneath the rear of the Super 3 entry with Luke Speck at the wheel, and Speck's really got his hands full.
You are not wrong. Ryan Smith all over the rear end of Speck like a fat kid on a bag of candy.
Oh yeah, he certainly is. Great start from Kemp as well. He started 10th, he's running 6th, so he's been a beneficiary of not only Callahan going off the road, but a couple of other spots as well. So that he'll be delighted with that. And we're going to try and latch onto the back of Smith here if he can. But he's got some company. He's got Scott Murrell after that.
Oh, we've got yellow flags in the background.
And we have
Sorry
got yellow...
to interrupt.
Yep,
Rhodey and Teglis.
Yep, we have got
Rhodey's gone around again.
Yeah, we've got Rhodey and Teglis out the back of something going on here. They're recovering to the track. So we'll have the 2 or 3 cars were stopped in that little train there. And there was some recovering traffic in here as well. So Rhodey looking down the inside of Teglis at the second to last corner. And I think, Teglis, don't tell me he's lost it on his own.
Nasty rejoin.
A bit of an average rejoin there. And they both made the fence.
I think it's one of those nights where Rhodey's night's just gone from bad to worse. He said between race 2 and 3 that he had a plan for race 3, but I think that plan might have just come unstuck.
It might have just come unstuck indeed. So they're now down toward the back of the field. They're second to last and third to last. So Palfrey's the last man at the moment, as it looks like Speck finally is going to have to surrender 4th place here to Smith, and Murrell will go with him. Speck's on the inside here, so he's narrow for the final corner. That's not a moved and passing spot, and that's going to compromise him with Murrell getting a good run through the final corner, and he might have a nice little toe here down the front straight for a move into turn 1. He's definitely close enough. Can he pull it up? Is he going to have a
Murrell's
look?
almost 10 k's quicker.
And he does, and he goes to the inside on Speck, so good opportunistic
Warwick in the
move
background
there.
making a move on Cracker as well. He's made it stick. He's running right out to the edge.
And
he's made it stick into 3.
And they are, and he's got that move done, and then
Speck
hogs
gone
the apex
wide.
of
He's lost
3.
another. He's lost another spot to Kemp, possibly. He's going to hold it 2 wide through 5. Into 6, might get a little bit hairy.
Oh, Speck gives him no quarter, heading through 5 as well. Makes Kemp earn the position. And here he comes
Kemp
late in the
will not
braking
like
phase.
that.
No, he won't, but he comes late in the braking phase, and now he's got the inside for 7. But then the next corner goes left, and Speck's in there as well.
He's
And
jammed
Warwick,
down there. Warwick's
very...
giving him the push through.
Yeah.
Oh, how's that?
Yeah, Warwick gave him a... looks like he took a 2x4 and just went whack and said, here you go, Luke Speck, I'll just give you the little bit that you need to get through because I want to get through as well. And then seeing right behind them, you had, who was in there, Kai Jones, Cracker.
Kai Jones and Cracker, 3 wide into the final corner. Kai Jones has been tapped in the rear end by Bennett. Bennett's going to try and get through the last corner. He does, he makes it stick. Kai gets a little bit of a wiggle wobble out of the last corner.
And looking like a very close fight out in front, possible nearly a change for the lead there going into turn 1 on lap 4. But it's Brap who holds out for the moment. I think he's probably hoping that he can drag Green into this one.
Oh, Speck and Warwick are around.
Yeah, they are indeed. There's
wow.
a major collision.
Full course yellow.
Yeah, full course. There's got to be a full course yellow, and it is. There's a major collision down at turn number 1, so that neutralises the field. And there's been all sorts of chaos at turn number 1 and 2 on that lap there. So Cracker was around, so too was Warwick. There was a bunch of others in there, and the safety car makes its first appearance of the night. Going back, having a look at the replay here, let's have a little bit of a look at what happened. So Cracker sort of arrived on the scene just as the accident in front of him was happening. And did he actually get caught up in the incident? So, yeah, there was a contact between Warwick and Speck, and then it all sort of really kicked off from there. And there was, there's a hell of a lot of damage and a hell of a lot of broken race cars that are going to be in that one there. Let's see if we can get
a fair few big hits.
Yeah, let's see if we can get a bit of a look at what happened to Steve Warwick and Luke Speck, because that's sort of where it started. So if we go over to the other camera here, have a look at the replay here. This is what happened between Warwick and Speck. So
Kemp and Speck were sort of side by side. Kemp got Speck wide, and Steve's tried to go down the inside, and he's just not pulled it up in time.
No, that's it.
And then obviously everyone else arrived on the scene.
Yeah, collision effect, and I think that definitely was triggering the safety car. So Kemp sort of was rubbing shoulders there with Speck, which I think was sort of all fair and legal, and Speck had sort of been a bit wide of the mark there. And then Warwick's arrived on the scene, and it's a bit hard for us to tell from that sort of an angle as to what's actually gone on. But it looks like there might have been an attempt to make a pass there, and at the same time Speck was rejoining the track, and there might not have been enough room.
No, I don't think there really was that much room for him to come back and try to rejoin. But from what I can see, it looks like I'm just having a look at the onboard at the moment. Speck and Kemp were they'd sort of fixed everything up by the time they got back through, and Kemp was on the outside and Speck was on the inside. I think Steve's just tried to take it down the inside beside Speck, and sort of just hasn't really accounted for the fact that he's moving just that little bit slower, and it sort of caught him off guard.
Yeah, I think he's sort of been caught a little bit out there. It has shaken up the top end of the order though a little bit, because Speck's lost a couple of positions out of that. He was fighting for 5th, and he's now finds himself in 9th. Warwick, who was up in 6th, now finds himself in 10th, and then Kemp manages to get away with one there, and he's up in 6th place.
Indeed, he is. There's a little bit of lap traffic mixed in with this top 10. Brody in 24th. He's mixed in. He's just between Kemp and Cuppert. As we were saying before, his night really hasn't gone to plan as he would have hoped. Pre-race 3, he was in the Dev Series chat. He was making a list, checking it twice, and he was going to remember who was naughty and nice. And he had plans for race 3, but I don't think his Christmas in July has worked out just the way he planned.
No, certainly hasn't. So for Rhodey, this is very much just a, finish the race and just see where you end up situation. This sort of is a little bit of a reprieve for Brap, I think, at the moment. So the safety car came on lap 4, or the end of lap 4, start of lap 4, I should say, which nullified the field. So we've been under safety car now. This is the second lap of safety car, so now halfway into this race. So this will put a little bit more meat on those tyres for the back half of this race. But he had some defending to do, so I think this is probably just giving him a little bit of a reprieve and just giving him a chance to regather his thoughts, reassess what Seth Brown is doing, and how he's going to tackle this second half of the race. This essentially now turns into whatever the remaining laps is. I guess you can call it in the old days, the old club sprint. That's what they're going to have right now on the clock, depending on how many laps we are going to be under safety car for. It's a random number, so it's somewhere between 2 laps and 4 laps, and whenever the safety car comes in, they'll get the signal around about the last corner that the lights go out. They probably will have had the cockpit messaging system tell them if the safety car is going in this lap. We don't know until the lights go out. Usually we can get an indicator when the leader starts to back the field up, which we're looking at now, and I'm thinking that Brap might be trying to do just that, to give the safety car a bit of room. So wouldn't be surprised if we're going back to green flag this time around, but I also wouldn't be surprised if maybe we're going 1 lap more.
I reckon we'll probably be going 1 lap more. I think what the go was with Brap backing up where he did, and unfortunately I've just seen we've just lost Jacob Palfrey. Brap was backing everyone up just because the safety car likes to take it a little bit slower through the last couple of corners, and I've just heard from race control that we're going green next time round.
There you go. So Brendan Ross in there advising that the game has informed the drivers that this is the last lap of safety car, so that will mean 5 laps remaining when the safety car goes in. So you'll see them all start to go line astern coming through the last couple of corners. They'll all try and close the margin up. Now, just harking back to some of the safety car restarts that we did see in the development series in the last round at Watkins Glen, there was quite a few of them. The rule is the leader's prerogative is to go when they are ready, anywhere between the time the green flag is shown and the control line. Now, the control line comes up fairly quickly. It's actually at the bridge just next door to the pit entrance, so it comes up fairly quickly out of the last corner. The safety car will go in, green flag will go almost straight away, and then you've got about 4 or 5 seconds, or maybe even 6 seconds worth of driving at safety car pace until you hit the control line. So you've not got a lot of time to make your decision. So that's a free kick for the drivers behind, because they know all they've got to do is just keep that concentration span for just a few seconds and stay close to the rear bumper of the car in front, because the more that the safety car, the further away from the green flag that the control line is, the longer it is for those drivers to have to wait, and the advantage goes to the race leader that they can potentially catch them sleeping and get a march on them.
Absolutely, and at this point, I think, because it's a new track, people don't know about it. I think what could happen, we could see that the leader may not have done his reading and not realise that the control line is as close as it is to the entry to the pit lane, and the green flag will go as early as it does. We may see, and we have seen it in the past, where drivers have taken it all the way up to the start-finish line where the cars come in for a grid, but haven't realised that the control line was, 150, 200 metres back.
So Brap's got control of the field here, waiting for the safety car to get into lane. He's taking him right down to the control line. It's right there. So here we go.
He's caught him napping.
It's caught them napping. That's a good restart from Brap. So Seth Brown
has
done his reading. He makes the defensive move early, try to get some heat into those tyres because they've gone cold. 5 laps to go. Brown makes the dive at turn 1, so he wasn't wasting any time here. Brap's got to leave him some room. Uses the curb, flies the car up on 2 wheels, and surrenders the lead to Seth Brown at the restart.
Everyone looks like, we had a couple of people off in the background. We had Cracker and Angus Brown off in the background. They're now down in 22nd and 23rd.
They certainly are, as the field runs through turn 5 at the restart here. So Cuppet's moved up into position number 7. Kai Jones up to 8th as Warwick picks off Luke Speck for 9th place at turn 6. So he's now on the recovery march. Moving
Scott
up the order
Murrell
here.
sent it off.
Murrell off the track, just ahead of this group of cars here, but I think he's kept it pointing the right way. No, he hasn't.
He's come back on behind Warwick.
Yeah, there he is, just back a shot there. He's managed to come back on. So he was up in 5th place. He's surrendered all the way down to 9th. So for Murrell, bit of a mistake late in the race here. Cold tyres, cold brakes, just not judging the corner and the braking zone properly, just pushing a little bit too hard as we chalk off another lap. We've got 4 more to go.
Spot fires all over the place here at the moment. Massive spot fire that just flared up in those last couple of corners was Callahan, Damo and Nathan Coe in 13th, 14th and 15th. They were getting real racy. They were getting real argy-bargy.
You certainly are. Brap had a little bit of a move down the inside at turn 1. He's now vulnerable to Anthony Green round the outside, but no room there for Green. He's going to have to settle for 3rd place again for a moment, and Brap's throwing the kitchen sink when he gets in the toe of the Matt Stone Racing Commodore heading down the front straight.
He locked the rears, Seth Brown. He's managed to make it stick, but he's lost time to Brap.
He certainly has lost a little bit of time to Brap here. This is back to this little battle here you were talking about a few seconds ago with Bennett, Loughnane, Nathan Coe and the others for 13th, 14th and 15th. It looks like Bennett maybe has just got the upper hand here at the moment, not only on his teammate, but on the other FG Falcon driver of Nathan Coe, who's having a fairly handy round, as we said, at the end of race number 2. He's going to see if he can try and chase down the 222 machine here of Damo Kelly, who locks the brake ahead of him.
Loughnane with a massive dive on Coe. Gets it done. Gets a little bit of front end collision with Coe. He's made it stick. Though Coe's got a massive run on Loughnane out of the final corner. Darren's going to have to go defensive here, unless he wants to give it up at turn 1 and try and recoup that spot later in the lap.
Well, here goes Coe. He's not going to give him any room here on the outside. He'll just give him enough room that he needs, but Loughnane sees a bit more opportunity there around the outside and holds it, and Coe leaves him some space, so there's good clean racing between the 2 Super 3 combatants. Then you have Ethan Knight looking for a way through, looking, who do you pick? He's trying to try the outside here, just ease off the throttle a bit more and maybe just try and tuck it in behind here, because you're going to go too wide here, you're going to drop it off the ripple strip.
Darren's done it perfectly.
And Darren did it really well there, and he made Ethan Knight go the long way round, but now...
Coe's making him go the long way round him though.
This is a great scrap over probably what's about 4th or so in the running order in Super 3. So through turn 7 and 8 they go. So the leader in Super 3 at the moment is, looking through the order here, it is still Luke Speck in 10th place from Callahan, and then Bennett's 3rd, and this is over 4th and 5th in Super 3. Late dive from Loughnane, and trying to go with him is Ethan Knight, and he very nearly got his nose cut off despite his face there. The gap diminished very, very quickly, and again, not a booted passing zone at the final corner, but Knight tries it anyway, and that sort of gives Coe the run that he needs, and they're going to go 3 wide down the front straight. Commodore on the right-hand side, 2 Falcons on his left.
Oh, yeah, how scary would it be being the middle person in that pack? He's gotten the brakes wrong though. He's gone wide. That's given Knight the opportunity to make it stick around the outside for the inside at turn 3. A little bit of argy-bargy coming together in the entry of turn 3. He's made it stick though, so it's now Knight, Loughnane and Coe. 15, 16, 17.
And hopefully that should be that, with Knight running a little bit wide there. Oh, he's very loose though, and Loughnane's going to try and go the long way around the outside here at 6. So Knight will have to leave him some room, but Loughnane has to fall back in behind. Back to the front of the field. 1 more lap to go, plus 1 corner. And Brown's got just a little bit of margin here. He's just managed to find a little bit more room in the last few corners. Brap very wide at the final corner,
yeah.
And I don't think that would have made anything beneficial to his straight line speed. Green's right in the toe, but Green I don't think's got anything for Brap at the moment.
No, he doesn't, but I'm looking at something down the back here. 5th and 6th, Kai Jones and Darren Kemp. Darren got a very bad run out of the end of that last lap. He's made it stick into the first corner though. He was probably about a car length and a half back, and he's made it stick. Kai is now trying to give him what for to try and get that spot back before the end of the lap.
And I noticed Murrell out the back as well, had a bit of a tardy turn number 1 as well. Jones all over the rear boot lid of Darren Kemp's machine. And looking inside, looking outside. He tried for the inside. He had to switch to the outside because Kemp had already picked his line. Cuppett's going to try and give Jones a bit of a shove through at turn 6, but he wasn't quite there. And ASR's self-proclaimed best defender is really earning his stripes here at the moment.
Isn't he?
We'll keep an eye on that one. We'll catch the race lead around the last couple of corners. He is going to make it a perfect debut in ASR Development Series, and some drivers in supercars next week, I think, should be worried. He wins this race. Brap's going to be second from Anthony Green, and then Ryan Smith in fourth. But the battle here still going on. Jones has been shuffled down
going to be close,
a bit
sixth
further,
and seventh.
and 6th and 7th will be very close. Brap is so he's going to maintain the championship lead, but then Kemp up to 5th ahead of Cuppett and Jones. So a defensive performance from Kemp late in the race there. Murrell's going off in the boonies down the side of the circuit, so he's not too happy about what happened there. Jeez, he flashed across the front of the camera like that,
yeah.
So he is none too pleased at the moment.
No,
So
he is not.
Kemp,
Fortunate.
so Kemp 5th, Cuppett 6th, and Jones and Luke Speck, who's the winner in Super 3 for this race, and he's the round winner in Super 3, so we'll have a chat with him after this one. With Steve Warwick recovering to 9th, Murrell a top 10 finish despite all of that. So it's not a bad night for Murrell, but he probably would have liked it to have gone a bit better than he did. Then you had Darryl Callahan just outside the 10 in 11th, with Bennett 12th, and then Matt Cecil 13th. Damo Kelly 14th.
Best result of the night from Matt
for him.
Cecil.
And Ethan Knight in 15th, with Lockman 16th, and just outlasting Nathan Coe there. So that was a great exchange between the Super 3 drivers that we were catching at the back part of that. Last few places, you end up with Laszlo Teglis in 18th, Cracker 19th, and then you had Melody Smith and Glenn Miles 20th and 21st. Rhodey was a lap down, he was 11th, and we did lose Angus Brown after the restart. He only completed 9 laps. And then Luke Yeager 8, he was a non-finisher as well, and then Palfrey dropped out after 4 laps, and of course we didn't have a start from Chase Tippett in the 26 car, or Aidan Williams. So there you go.
Eventful evening.
Very, very eventful evening. Debut of supercar spec machinery at the Bend Motorsport Park here in ASR, and it all comes around again in 7 days' time when the main game field will roll out onto the 3.9 kilometre west layout here in South Australia. So now we get a bit of reprieve here, and we start to have a bit of a think here go about who we're going to bring up and have a little bit of a chat with. I'm sort of thinking that it's probably going to be our top 3 for the night. So we're probably going to ask, I guess, to have a chat with our round winner for a start in Super 2. I think that's a fairly obvious statement.
Yep.
It's Seth Brown. So we're going to send out the chat here as well, and just say for the interviews who we're going to grab. Who else do you think we're going to grab here?
I reckon, though we didn't see him in the last race, I reckon Aidan Williams should we should probably interview him as well.
Yes, I think we'll grab Aidan Williams as well for an interview there as well. For Luke Speck for our Super 3 winner, and probably Brap as well. We'll grab him in here as well. So there's your top 3 in Super 2. Your top, your top 2, or at least top 3 for the round, and probably one other. Who do we think we want to grab? Who's impressed you tonight?
Well, out of that last race, I reckon it was quite a good performance from Steve Warwick to be up 7 spots. Matt Cecil got himself quite a fair way up in that last race. That's probably a little bit more of the result that he's wanting to see. I reckon probably Ethan Knight, if he's available.
Yeah, let's see if we can grab Ethan Knight, actually. We'll have a bit of a message and see if he can actually. All right, so we've got our drivers sort of getting themselves ready to go, and we're going to bring them up into the booth right now. And it looks like Ethan Knight is going to join us, so this is actually really, really nice to see. And I think Brap's sort of in there, sort of getting a little bit of a breather at the moment. So let's go to our Beyond Electrical round review.
Brap, sorry, just quickly. Brap is unfortunately unavailable.
Okay.
To come in for an interview. So I reckon.
You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna let you go and figure that one out, Higo. I'm gonna let
Yep.
you go and find somebody down in the swarm of development series drivers to come up for an interview while I actually get things
Yep.
underway here.
No worries.
All right, so we will have a chat first and foremost with our Super 2 round winner. Debut in this particular round, and he's swept the round pole and all three of the race wins. Seth Brown, you've announced yourself on the ASR stage here, and I think a number of drivers are going to be paying attention. So job well done.
Yeah, thank you. Bit different. This is my first ever race on this game, let alone league race, and definitely different to a bit the iRacing. But yeah, those I was struggling a bit with those last two races as I was getting a bit of screen freezing, so not used to this game. So that's definitely what I looked at. Just want to apologise to Brap because I had that much screen freezing. I was making a bit of contact with him, but it was good racing.
Yeah, I think so too. Definitely some good racing, and you managed to pull out a healthy margin in the opening couple of races. You did make a slight mistake in race number two that sort of dragged you back to Brap and Aidan Williams, who were battling there over second and third at the time. But you managed to pull that margin out again. So was it your consistency tonight was actually remarkably good when the green flag running was on, and then you pulled that final move off at the restart there and sort of never looked back. You weren't able to pull the margin out, but you sort of never looked back once you managed to execute the restart pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, I was consistently fast on my lap times, just a few mistakes that, like, obviously just experience a rookie in this V8 series, so a few stuff I can touch up on, but yeah, I kind of was, when I spun, I had a big drift off the penultimate corner and screen freeze. I'm like, oh, where am I going to end up? And I was off doing some 4B riding, so yeah, but yeah, managed to break down the gap when Aiden with Braff having a mega battle.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So with that round win, maximum points, pole position, that all having to go. What's your first impressions of racing in the league? Something you want to be doing a little bit more often? I think you were even joking in the chat that you might want to do the main game next week.
Yeah, I mean, I know a few of my guys from iRacing say like, oh, the Automobilista leagues in like the V8 series are good fun, clean racing. And I just like how this league, like, all the admins set their time aside just to give us tracks from Australia. It's mega, so just like to thank all the admins for putting on the league race good fun. And yeah, I definitely love to have a crack at the series, the
Well,
V8 series.
Well, we'll soon find out whether or not you get the gong in a couple of days' time once the reviews are done, and I'm sure you'll be welcomed into the main series at Open Arms if that's the case. So, job well done on your debut tonight.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, let's flip over to who was our Super 3 round winner for this particular week, and I guess it was a little bit unexpected coming into the round, but Luke Speck, you've jumped into Jake Burke's Commodore. It's the second time in as many weeks you've done so, and you find yourself a round winner in Super 3. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you about that. It was not bad racing, just kept it on the black stuff, and yeah, the pace did the rest really. So, bit of fun.
Yeah, running in the top 10 most of the night as well. So, definitely not, a slouch by any means in terms of pace. Some fun battling there in the middle of the pack. You copped a few whacks here and there as well. Managed to recover pretty well in some of those occasions and take home a decent haul of points. Your third round in the series, and I guess you seem to be enjoying it.
Yeah, it's a big change from coming from F1 over to V8, but the change of car and yeah, not a single seater is a big change, but it's been good fun and hopefully keep getting quicker over time.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something we've seen from you. You've been in the practice servers most nights during the week. You turn up and have a bit of a chat session with Will Devonish and Termo and those guys, and I think was definitely somebody that has been popping up on my radar as someone that's been actually putting in the effort. So I think that from where I sit, we're seeing your reward is justified for the amount of effort you've been putting in. And I guess someone else that might potentially be knocking on the door of maybe pairing up with another driver, maybe come Enduro time because you certainly got some handy pace.
I've got the pace, but I don't think I have the consistency yet. But hopefully over time, it's gonna keep it on the black stuff more and not wobble as much, but we'll see how we go over time with that one.
You certainly will, but yeah, don't worry about wobbling too much. We haven't seen too much of it from you so far. So well done on your Super 3 round win, and yeah, you're yet another driver that's starting to cause a little bit of some waves here in ASR. Well done.
Cheers, appreciate it, mate.
Right, someone in that series of races who was running a good portion of the round in the top 3, unfortunately didn't finish race number 3 due to what appears to be some technical issues. Aidan Williams, you were mixing it right up in the thick of things there with the championship leader for the first couple of races. How was that battle?
Yeah, it was a pretty good battle with Brap and everything. And yeah, that's basically all I've got to say there for now.
Yeah, from our point of view, it actually looked like it was quite willing and, fair driving. And there was a little bit of rubbing here and there, but it didn't look like anything that was too out of line. Talk us through what happened at the start there of race 3. You just pulled over at the side of the circuit, went back to the pits and couldn't get the car going again.
Yeah, when I got off the grid, my wheel calibration stuffed up, so it just kept moving left to right. Then I pulled over. Then when I was trying to change it, the game just full on crashed.
All right, so yeah, unfortunately not able to make it back in that time, but a little bit disappointing because you definitely did have some pace, and you've given the new livery aboard the VF Commodore that Daniel Cox designs painted for you definitely some front-running time. So I think you're very grateful to Coxie that he's designed that for you, and I'm sure he's very grateful to see it running up the front.
Yeah, it's just all in the livery. Best luck out of all of it.
That was the best luck out of all of it. And another one, I think, who's possibly knocking on the door of maybe having a little drive in the main game in the next week, if you're possibly keen for it.
Yeah, I'd be keen for it. Get in the mix of Lachlan Burke and everyone. It'll be fun battling.
Yeah, I think Lachlan Burke is, someone that possibly introduced you to this league. I think most of you in the karting fraternity seem to know each other quite well. So good to see that Burkey's out there and putting out the good word for the league, and good to have you along. So job well done on the 2 races you had tonight, and unfortunate commiserations on the issues at the beginning of race 3.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, so with our top couple of drivers that we've interviewed there completed, we're going to throw this one over to Ethan Knight, so someone that's been new to the series at the beginning of this year. Ethan, you've had a few sort of mixed results over the course of the year so far, some good battles in that race that we just saw and throughout the night. How's your time been in ASR over the course of the first 6 rounds?
Yeah, it's really good. I've only really raced in Seto Corsa and iRacing, and it's my first time jumping over to Automobilista and in ASR. It's really good, just everything and how it's run and the quality of the way the cars drive and that. Yeah, it's really enjoyable.
What's been your favourite sort of round you've had so far? I think you've missed maybe one of the rounds out of the first 6 so far. What track would you put down as your best performance so far of the season? What would you feel most comfortable with?
Oh, I think I opened up pretty good on Calder, but with a P6, I think, in the first race, and then the second race had a little moment in towards the back end. But even this round here, I think all 3 races sort of sum up how my season's been. I had a pretty good result in the first race, and in the second I was sort of mid-pack, and then the third I got caught up in that safety car incident. So yeah, it's sort of been a little bit inconsistent, but I definitely have a few good races each round, so it's been really enjoyable.
Yeah, definitely. And from when we look at the race results here, and we can actually see that, you've had a couple of top 10 finishes, and then you've had a few other finishes where, races haven't gone according to plan, or you've been caught up in someone else's unfortunate accident. So I guess you're probably another one of the drivers, just searching for a little bit of consistency round to round, and maybe just a little bit of good luck in some of the second and third races too.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you qualify poorly, you get tangled up in some of the mess, but I think it does come down to my qualifying, because when I have done all right in qualifying with the top 10, I've sort of been able to battle guys up the front, or, between positions 5 and 12, and yeah, it's been really good. But even that last race there, I copped a lot of aero damage, and trying to get through turn 5 with the aero damage, it was pretty rough, and it sort of just was more conservative in terms of just getting the finish.
Yeah, and that's probably the smart play to take at that point in time as well. You don't want to push the car too much and risk damaging it further, or running off the road and losing a chunk of points, because we've seen in times gone past that every point sort of counts, and you did the right thing there. So we'll look forward to seeing you for the next round, and you've had a good season so far, and good to see you with us, and hopefully some good results to come.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Higo. Well, I sent you on a bit of a mission before. Who have you found and what questions have you got for him? Well, Nathan Higginson has died. We'll come back to Nathan Higginson. No, he hasn't.
I'm here.
You
I'm
are
here.
here. You are here. All right. Who
Uh,
did you find and what questions do you have for them?
I scrounged up one Jesse Bennett, and tagging along with him was Benjamin Rhodes. He was thrown up here as well. We'll start with you, Rhodey.
Yep.
Just quick summary. How was your night?
Do we want the parts I want to talk about, or the parts that are good for the broadcast? We'll go for the latter.
Get column B, please,
Yeah,
Rhodey.
column B,
Yeah, we'll go for the
please.
latter. No, credit to the track development team that got this track working. I know it was a tight slog. We were only going to replace it with Gold Coast, so good work by Lewis and Rossi and Higo and Nether as well for the work they put into this. Also, thanks to the guys that turned up for the Dev Series testing and to the guys that showed up a couple of weeks ago for the admin and friends testing, just to get it set up ready to go. This is the first time we've been at the Bend, but it won't be the last. It's got a DD3 layout. It's got a layout that's good for social series, and in future plans with RF2, I don't know if we're going to bring multi-class endurance racing back. The full 7K circuit's definitely long enough for that. Look, for the most part, there was some really good racing tonight. The track definitely helped out with that. It was a frustrating track at times to lap because a lot of this track is waiting to get on throttle, and that's one of the most frustrating parts as a racing driver. But no, most of the racing I saw around me was pretty good. Some really good performances from the guys that are in Super 3, especially those that are trying to avoid being taken out of Super 3. Like I think personally, Crack had a really good night actually. He came a cropper at the end of at least 2 races, I think, but still had really strong pace. He was running up there in the top 12, which is very much where I think I'd like to see him and very much where he'd like to see himself. We've got plans on what we might be doing going into 2024. So it's good to start getting some data to sort of back up some of those options. But no, really good racing. Everyone did a good job under safety car as well. We thought there was going to be more, if we're honest. We were surprised that we only got the one in the end, and yeah, that's the parts I can talk about.
That's all right. So was it just issues with getting into people during the night, or just not being where you thought you should be on the grid?
If Lewis is the football of sim racing, I'm the pincushion. I'll put it like that.
Is it that bad? Was it?
Yeah, I won't say any further.
Okay, I feel like we might be knocking on the door of a little bit of a sour response there.
Yeah,
so
I would agree.
We might leave it there, Rhodey. Hopefully your luck will come up a little bit better next round.
Yeah, I forget where we're going in the next track.
Townsville.
Townsville. Yeah, I don't mind Townsville. I'm famous for my blow-ups at Townsville as well, but no, the track itself, I do quite enjoy Townsville, so we'll see how we go.
From what I recall, I don't think you've had too many blow-ups at Townsville here in ASR, have you?
Not here, no, but people know me for it all the time.
That'll be all right. that'll be all right. All right. So yeah, well, we hope to see that your luck improves during the next round.
Thank you. Here you go.
No worries. You have a good night.
You too.
All right. So I managed to scrounge up Jesse Bennett, current Super 3 points leader, I believe.
Certainly is a Super 3 points leader, and he's with us now. And Jesse, some mixed results for you tonight.
Yeah, I knew this track going into would be a bit of a difficult one after my performance at Watkins. Just like Rhodey said, most of the time you're just waiting for the throttle to, want to plant it, and then I could not find the spots for it here.
Yeah, sounds like a bit of a common theme, doesn't it, Higo?
Yeah, it does. Other than just waiting to get on the throttle, did you find tonight that how did the track suit, or how do you think your driving style suited the track, seeing as it's a track that's a lot more catered towards mechanical grip than it is aerodynamic grip?
Well, coming over from the F1 games where it's all aerodynamics, this track was definitely a difficult one to understand. My weakest point in driving is braking for deep, like overtaking zones. I cannot do them for the life of me, and yeah, didn't go too well tonight.
Yeah, as I think I saw you mention earlier during the week, you were having issues getting the braking zone for turn 6 right down into the tight hairpin. From what we could see, you seem to get it a little bit better this weekend. I mean, the results. They're probably not the sort of results you'd want. I'm sure they're probably not the sort of results that you would have wanted to have seen, but they're not the worst results in the world either. So I guess it's a little bit one of those, as Stephen put it, it's one of those weekends you're sort of just in a bit of a damage limitation mode. Would I have that correct?
Yeah, qualifying was a bit shocking and didn't have the best of laps and had some issues with other drivers on those laps. And then just during the race, like locking up into turn 6 during practice was annoying. And during the races I went, I need damage preservation, just bringing back the braking, might get overtaken, but life's life. You still go through the corner, it'll be fine.
Very much so. All right. Well, I don't have any more questions for you. Stephen, do you have any more questions?
No, I think coming out of Watkins Glen round, I think it was a bit of a shock to our systems, Jesse, that you were the Super 3 points leader after a pretty poor round for your teammate. You've still got the points lead, and your teammate sort of didn't have the greatest night of results either. So I guess it's sort of a bit of a status quo heading into the next round at Townsville. But we're looking forward to seeing you guys continue that battle because it's rather intriguing to see two teammates battling it out for the title. We don't get to see that all that often, so it's a bit of a welcome breath of fresh air. So well done, and keep your chin up.
Thank you.
Here. Have a good night, mate.
You too.
All right, that's been our round review for Beyond Electrical, and definitely some happy campers in the pit paddock after tonight's proceedings are over. A few drivers left scratching their heads, and a few drivers that have definitely shown their hand, not only in this series, but have also shown their hand to the rest of the ASR community. So there's going to be a lot to digest from a lot of people, I think, after this night is over, with supercars just 7 days away at this very circuit, Higo. So I think a few people are just looking at it going, who's going to be the wild cards that are going to pop up and challenge the field? Well, we know we've already got Luke Rosella back, and there's a couple of fast guys knocking on the door of a wild card showing next round. How many can we squeeze in?
I reckon, depending on how many people are going to not turn up next week, I reckon if, obviously, grid space permitting, I reckon we could see the top 3 drivers from tonight being Seth Brown, Aiden Williams, and Brap all take a spot on the grid. I reckon we might even see someone like Hayden Cuppett take a spot on the grid.
Yeah, I think there's a few people that are being sort of given the elbow, nudge to potentially step up and have a crack, especially with Enduros not too far away. You want to get some seat time in some of these supercars, and there's plenty of drivers showing their hand as a possible candidate for stepping into some main game cars. So that is the end of the 6th round for the ASR Development Series. So as we said, it'll be back again in a handful of weeks' time when we go racing at Townsville around the Reed Park Street Circuit. I'd like to thank Nathan Higginson for being a really, really good sport and stepping in at short notice with Lewis Wedding unfortunately coming down ill and NZ Snipes as well. It was sort of a very late call up for him to the box, and the comments in the live chat have been nothing but positive, and I would echo those sentiments as well. Higo, you've had a really, really good debut, and thanks for being a good sport and being willing to step in and take one for the team.
Thank you very much for having me. I feel like I've done not too bad, so yeah, I'm quite happy with it.
You've done more than not too bad, mate. You've done very, very well for your first night in the box. And you'll get to hear myself and Benjamin Roadie Rhodes in 7 days' time for Supercars right here on Outwell Broadcasting. So until next time, please drive safely, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.